Since its founding 50 years ago, SCI has provided investment managers and asset owners with robust infrastructure platforms and flexible outsourcing solutions. Go to scic.com/IMS. And the S&P 500 is higher at the open, up 0.5% or 15 points at 3258. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.3% or 89 points to 28,628. And the Nasdaq's up 0.7% or 68 points to 9,208. 10-year Treasury down 2/32, yield 1.61%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is down less than 0.1%, well, now down 4 cents at 53.10 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.2% or $3 to 15.8070 an ounce. The euro 1.1002 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.97. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. Again, green on the screen, up 64. This is a joy. We've really tried on team surveillance over the last 4 or 5 days to bring you medical professionals instead of sort of the media drumbeat on this horrific virus in China. One of the people that we would like to speak to, and we do now, Dr. Axirius Barbeau, is the New York City Health Commissioner. And Dr. Paul and I got a whole bunch of questions for you, but I'm going to start with a simple announcement by CDC of obviously LAX, SFO, JFK, and Paul, with your respect, I'd add Newark to it as well. What do you actually do as New York City Health Commissioner to help JFK find the proverbial virus in a haystack? How do you do that?
Well, let me start off by saying that this is a new strain of an existing virus, and we are very concerned about the way in which every day we have large numbers of people newly diagnosed with the virus. But the good thing here is that we have history collaborating with the CDC and our state partners in terms of screening people who come through our airports. And so the way in which that works is the CDC has a team at JFK, and they screen patients that are coming in. Before the travel restriction in Wuhan, they were screening direct flights, but right now they're screening indirect flights. And we have direct communications with them so that if anybody meets the criteria of having traveled to Wuhan, of having fever, cough, shortness of breath, or any other symptoms that could be connected to corona, then they call us, and we leverage our team members and send the EMS out to transport the patient.
I went through JFK a couple days ago, and literally CDC was 20 feet from me, where their office.
I'm Karen Moscow from the Bloomberg.
Do you pick them out? How do you choose who to screen?
So the CDC are the ones that do the actual screening, and they work with Customs and Border Patrol to identify individuals that are connected to Wuhan.
Dr. Barbeau, you mentioned working with your partners across the state. I want to read a quote to you from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Quote, "While there have been no confirmed cases in New York State as of today, our Department of Health has sent samples for 9 individuals to CDC for testing. 4 of those samples have proven negative, but 5 results are still pending. These 5 individuals remain in isolation as their samples are tested at CDC. While the risk for New Yorkers is currently low, we're still working to keep everyone informed, prepared, and safe," unquote. So as you think about the city of New York, what type of preparations, I guess unique preparations, have you been undertaking over the last several days?
Well, I can say that we have communicated with our provider community. We do health alerts that we send out to thousands, tens of thousands of doctors and other healthcare professionals on our list. We have had conference calls with healthcare providers that provide medical services to the Chinese American community. We have worked closely with community-based organizations to ensure that educational materials are distributed in communities where anxiety may be high. The important thing to note here is that currently the risk to New Yorkers is low, but our preparedness is high. And the important thing is we want New Yorkers to be educated about what the risk is and also what to do in the event that they've traveled and have symptoms they're concerned about for coronavirus.
Are those symptoms different? I mean, you've been, I believe you've been said, Dr. Barbeau, that this is inevitable, that it will be in New York, et cetera. And I don't think anybody's surprised by that, given the news flow. Great. How can I tell the child with, a runny nose, et cetera, like every late January that every parent knows, from this horrific virus? Is there a way to discern it early on?
Well, as you say, we are in flu season, and so we're telling New Yorkers to practice everyday precautions of washing their hands frequently, covering their mouths and nose when they cough and sneeze. And those are actually the same precautions that will help protect against influenza and any other viruses that are circulating. I want to remind New Yorkers that outside of China, there is no indication that there is any ongoing transmission in the community, meaning that the people who are currently diagnosed with coronavirus have a connection via travel or exposure in Wuhan. There isn't anybody, and this could change, tomorrow or the next day. There isn't anybody who's been diagnosed that has no connection to Wuhan.
Dr. Barbeau, in New York City to date, it's been a mild winter. How would you characterize the current, kind of flu season, if you will?
It's good that you ask because actually our flu season picked up early this year and we're seeing a lot of individuals diagnosed with the flu. It's important for people to know that it's not too late to get the flu vaccine. And so all the more reason for New Yorkers to practice those everyday precautions.
So Dr. Barbeau, at what point will you feel that the city has kind of dodged the bullet, if you will, weathered the storm, gotten past the peak risk of this virus?
It's still way too early to tell. I think, honestly, we are at the beginning of what could potentially be weeks, if not months, of activity because of the coronavirus. And so we will remain vigilant throughout that period. And we want New Yorkers, again, to be informed and to take safety precautions, but not to the level that they would need to restrict, travel. And we want them to go about their daily lives.
Doctor, one final question, if we could, and it's so timely and important. We've had a debate within all of our experts, including Jennifer Rosen at UCL in London, over the efficacy of these masks. Do they work?
The question of masks comes up in a number of different situations, and the bottom line is that precautions such as frequent hand washing, covering mouths and noses when coughing and sneezing are the best way. Sometimes individuals who don't use masks consistently and don't take those everyday precautions, they can have a false sense of security. So for right now, the best thing New Yorkers can do, hand washing and covering their noses and mouths when they cough and sneeze.
Dr. Barbeau, thank you so much. Dr. Axiris Barbeau, New York City Health Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us today. And you're wonderful.
That was great.
Will we see with her again?
Yes.
We'd be with her again, given the news flow. Right now, speaking of the news, in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Paul, thank you very much. The third and final day for the defense in the impeachment trial of Donald Trump begins today. Yesterday, even while suggesting that President Trump's contact with Ukraine may have been inappropriate, defense lawyers say that's not an impeachable offense. Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz says he's done further research and concluded that unlike what he said during the Clinton impeachment, non-criminal conduct does not justify impeachment.
My switch in attitude, purely academic, purely nonpartisan. Nor am I the only participant in this proceeding who has changed his mind.
NTSB investigators say the helicopter in which Kobe Bryant and 8 other people died Sunday was not equipped with crash-proof voice and data recorders. NTSB member Jennifer Hamady says the pilot of the aircraft requested permission to climb to avoid a cloud layer and then made a descending turn and struck a hillside in Calabasas, California.
We're continuing to go through the wreckage over the next couple of days, and we're starting the recovery process. But, as we go through the wreckage, that's part of what we're looking for, is any electronic devices that we can send back to our lab.
Investigators say they are also gathering information on the pilot and the helicopter company. The latest coronavirus numbers from China are alarming. More than 4,500 confirmed cases. Health officials in China and with the World Health Organization are still investigating the virus to figure out how better to fight it. WHO spokesman Christian Lindmeier.
The incubation period can be anything between 1 and 14 days. That's what the experience so far shows.
At least 106 patients have died. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom, Paul?
Michael, thanks so much. Much to talk about here. And, of course, Apple coming out. Let's slide in here right now, Paul, with an Apple update. To me, the most extraordinary thing is something not talked about often enough, which is their simple profitability.
Yeah.
There's a gauge, folks. There's a general rule. Like a grocery store will be what we call a 2-cent business. They'll make 2 cents on the dollar, whatever it is, plus or minus a couple pennies. And then, Paul, there's that big, affluence of 15 cents on the dollar or 17 cents on the dollar. That's not Apple, is it?
I'm looking at the FA function right now, Tom, on the Bloomberg terminal for Apple, and the 20% net income margin is what this company
2-0.
Yeah, 2-0 throws to the bottom line, and then you go to the free cash flow. This is a number that just blows me away. $60 billion of free cash flow every year, and this is a company that's got $100 billion of net cash on its balance sheet already. So it's just an extraordinarily profitable company, extraordinarily free cash flow generating company, and I think the real issue is for this company is it seems like we've seen the stock double over the trailing 12 months, and the businesses that people were starting to kind of discount a little bit, that is the phone business, has actually started to be another growth engine again. And it's been a better than expected story for 2019, and that's the iPhone 11. So people said, gee, maybe this is still got some legs in the phone story. Then we've got potentially a 5G really big upgrade cycle coming, and that's got a lot of the bulls pretty positive.
What's important here, Paul, is a dichotomy between the media reporting that other cell phone makers or whatever are doing units, they're doing sales.
Yep.
They have market share as a phrase that's used, but the profit share of Apple, I would say almost in years of my study, is, maybe General Motors in 1928.
Exactly.
I don't know. The profit share of Apple in the different businesses they're in is borders on 80 or 90% of the profit capture, right?
It's extraordinary, and I think the big issue also for this company, Tom, from a profit perspective, is their pivot towards a services business, which is also a very profitable business for them. So, investors have been saying, boy, grow the services business, and that's going to be a nice complement to the hardware side of the business, and that's the bull case, I think.
This afternoon, Bloomberg will have full coverage of this. Of course, T-Live Go will have it all, M-Live Go, out in the Bloomberg, and you'll see it on Bloomberg News as well. Always interesting after the bell. Future, or rather the market open, I should say, up 56, 28,595, the VIX 17.37. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. For many New Yorkers, the rent is still too high, but New York's new law, which limits rent increases on roughly 1 million units, has scared potential apartment building buyers away. New numbers from Ariel Property Advisors finds a 36% drop in multifamily housing deals from 2018 to 2019, and a 40% drop in the collective value of those deals. Baby Shark, the viral earworm and de facto anthem for the Washington Nationals during the team's World Series run last year, gave its producer Kim Min-seok a fortune of about $125 million. His uncle Kim Chang-soo is doing even better. He and his family have an estimated net worth of roughly $1 billion, thanks in large part to their 54% stake in F&F Company, which manufactures and sells official Major League Baseball branded clothing, bags, and ball caps. Shares of the company almost tripled last year after striking a deal to sell MLB apparel in China. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Global.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Hello, I'm here at the Race for Life 5K, joined by Jackie Clark. Jackie, what would first place today mean to you?
I think you've got the wrong race, love. This is Race for Life. This is about beating cancer, not getting a gold medal.
And how did you train for this event?
I just turned up. It's a walk in the park, literally. Why aren't you doing it? Trainers on, let's go.
We're not athletes, we're cancer beaters. Sign up to Race for Life now and get 30% off entry until the 31st of January in partnership with Tesco.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. stocks are rebounding from the worst sell-off in 4 months on speculation that global efforts to contain the coronavirus will prevent a major economic fallout. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P 500 is up 1/3% or 11 points to 3255. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1/4% or 76 points at 28,613. The Nasdaq's up 0.5% or 49 points to 9188. 10-year Treasury down 2/32, yield 1.61%. Yield on the 2-year, 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is down about 0.2% or 8 cents at $53.07 a barrel. And COMEX gold is down less than 0.1% on $1.10 to $15.8270 an ounce. The euro, 1.1001 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.96. Watching shares of 3M, they're down more than 4% after it said it'll cut 1,500 jobs as it continues to grapple with challenges in markets, including car parts and electronics. Pulte Group is up 2.5% on better than expected quarterly orders after introducing more affordably priced houses. And Lockheed Martin is up 0.5% after reporting net sales that beat the highest analyst estimate. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Paul, why don't you bring in our next guest? He's a very special booking that we have here, and fear of missing out.
Exactly right. And this is going to be hopefully an NHL-free discussion, but I can't guarantee that. I can't guarantee
Even the
that.
Super Bowl won't keep us away from that.
Luke Kawa covers markets for Bloomberg News, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, Luke, we had that sell-off yesterday. What did you take away from that?
Correction.
So I think the sell-off you got yesterday is kind of consistent with the idea that, hey, nobody knows what is happening. Nobody knows how bad this can get. And we were in a position where everyone and their mother for at least 2 weeks had been saying, we really need a pullback. We need something to happen. We didn't get that on Iran. We didn't get that on any, changing political tides. So we got that on this. And it's not something that Wall Street is very much used to analyzing. stabilizing. And long story short, if we know anything, we know this will have a deleterious effect on China's growth, and China has been the kind of prime engine of economic activity, really the delta, the straw that stirs the drink since 2009 at least.
Are you surprised that we haven't had more of a pullback from risk assets? One could argue that if you just think back to SARS and you try to put some of those numbers on it, there could be more downside?
I think what's very interesting is trying to look at markets, the cross-asset view, and say, okay, how much are we worried about this as a growth scare versus how much is this an excuse to take profits? And I think looking at ITB, which is the home builder ETF, is pretty instructive in this regard. Over the past 5 sessions, including today, it's up 2.3%. It held up fairly well yesterday, while everything else was kind of, really taking it on the chin. So if you think the U.S. home builders are going to do well, that does not correspond to an environment in which the world is going to hell in a handbasket.
Our moving average is helpful here. I just looked at a fancy log moving average study I use, folks. It's called Kleiman Moving Averages. And cut to the chase, we're nowhere near support as described by the set of moving averages I use.
So I think the moving averages were very helpful in identifying the environment we've kind of got into here. For instance, I believe it was our own Gina Martin Adams in here who about a week or 10 days ago was just highlighting the extent of the move and the speed of the move above the 200-day and 50-day moving averages, and being and kind of pointing out that the forward return outlook from that point no longer is good. I don't know whether that means necessarily moving averages will be the best source of support on the way down, but it was helpful in identifying we were stretched.
David Weston said I got to ask a hockey question. 16 seconds. ESPN has a Leafs winning the Stanley Cup. Thoughts?
God bless ESPN, and you can tell nobody there has ever been a Toronto fan, is all I can say.
Thank you. That's very good. Luke Howe with the obligatory hockey question here today, doing market coverage for us. And, I'll try to get out, folks, this log chart of Dow with the moving averages. Meanwhile, he's destined for Iowa. David Weston with this as well. I thought the Iowa whole thing, David, was 1 week earlier than it is now. There's a little bit of room to get to Iowa. What do the candidates not want to do before they get to the debate?
What they absolutely have to do is get their votes out. And that's why Bernie Sanders right now appears to be coming on strong. We don't know what's going on in Iowa, but right now Bernie Sanders looks stark.
So what's he want to avoid?
What he wants to avoid is a third place. I mean, he needs a first or a second. I mean, it's interesting. Some people, like a third place for Klobuchar, Amy Klobuchar, would be a win. A third place for Bernie Sanders is a loss.
One thing people don't know is Weston darkened the door of various judge rooms and courthouses and legal things. And that, what do you make, David? And we've got to be careful here, folks. What do you make of the president's legal team? I looked at Mr. Sekulow's, wonderfully qualified law history, which has nothing to do with impeachment, constitutional law, or anything. What do you make, just watching day-to-day, expert, of the defense of the President of the United States?
It's a media event. I think President Trump regards it as a media event. When he cast his legal team, I think he took a look at it. He was casting for The Apprentice, and he put up all the people you put up. And I think the president might be right about that. It doesn't have much to do with the law anymore. This is a matter of how it's playing, and he wants the ratings up for Nielsen.
Balance of Power coming up, David, later today at noon on television and radio. What are you going to focus on?
Big shift, Middle East peace.
Okay.
We've got the president with Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, appearing at the White House at noon. We'll be taking it live as the president.
Do you know I've been doing this all morning and I didn't know that?
It's true. They're appearing live.
Thank you.
And at noon is also when the president reveals his Mideast peace plan. You remember how Jared Kushner's been working on this ever since he came in?
Thank you.
We're going to see it today at noon. He's already said the Palestinians are not going to like it. We're going to have a Palestinian expert. We're going to have somebody who worked on the John Kerry plan as well.
David Weston, thank you so much, and important at 12 noon. That will be live news, immediate news, and you'll see that simulcast, Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television as well. Paul, after the last 2 days, I really sort of thought flat to weaker today, because to be blunt, the news flow overnight was not all that good.
No, I'm actually, as I mentioned to Luke, put it to Luke Hawa, I'm, a little surprised that maybe we didn't have some continuation today of the sell-off from yesterday, because I agree with you, Tom. The news, on balance, I would characterize as a negative. Just the rate at which the cases are being diagnosed in China was a little bit more than I think most were looking for. But yet we've seen a little bit of stability here in the markets with kind of the equity markets up just slightly, but certainly stabilizing after yesterday.
Let me talk about bonds as well. 139 early American morning, and we've come back nicely. 4 solid basis points off the 139 to a higher yield, 1.43. Even 1.44% in the 2-year yield. That's a nice litmus paper of the system. And the big story to me, particularly with China and Asia, is I really expected gold up $9 earlier to even go up higher. That's reversed. I mean, there's no other way to put it. $15.81 the ounce on gold, down $2.40. And again, that's another constructive risk back on feel.
And that just to carry it out, Tom, with the commodities, Brent below 60, we're $58.98 a barrel. So we've seen oil pull back here. Concerns about global growth going forward, offsetting any possible constraints in supply. So we see oil trading down. Equity markets up slightly. This is Bloomberg.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Mix it up, skip, run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up, lift. Mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run. Mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Welcome to whatever this is.
Introducing Sky Comedy, the new home of U.S. comedy. We've got a great lineup of brand new shows like Miracle Workers with Steve Buscemi and Daniel Radcliffe, and The Righteous Gemstones with Danny McBride and John Goodman.
Praise be to He.
We've got talk shows straight from the U.S. like The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
What are you talking about?
Ballers and Curb Your Enthusiasm are back with new seasons. This is Sky Comedy, the brand new home of U.S. comedy. Funny every damn day.
Treat yourself.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans
fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Chairman Powell has lost the market.
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
What we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, buy the dip in strong effect today as people pile in, trying to take advantage after a pullback that was the biggest of 2020, but still relatively mild. Plus, we take a look at Huawei. Now, the United Kingdom is going to partner up with them to build some of their infrastructure and some of the controversy with the U.S. around that. Right now, though, let's head over to Karen Moscow for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Karen.
All right, Lisa, thank you. We're watching some breaking economic news crossing the Bloomberg. The Conference Board reporting consumer confidence in January rose to 131.6. That was better than economists were looking for. And the Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index was also better than economists were looking for. And we're watching stocks this morning. They're moving higher with the S&P 500 up 0.6% right now, up 18 points at 3261. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.4% or 115 points at 28,659. And the Nasdaq up 0.75% or 69 points at 9209. 10-year Treasury down 5/30 seconds, yield 1.62%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.1% or 5 cents at 53.10 a barrel, and COMEX gold down 0.25% or $4.10 at 15.7960 an ounce. The euro 1.1002 against the dollar. The yen is at 109.05. Also today, home prices in 20 U.S. cities rose in November at the fastest pace in 9 months, while orders for U.S. capital equipment unexpectedly declined in December. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa and Paul.
Karen Moscow, thank you so much. We appreciate it, Karen. Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. We have green on the screen after that sell-off yesterday, so seeing some stabilization there. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, what are you looking at this morning?
Well, when you get a deal going on, people get a little bit excited, and you have that in the auto parts business, and there's some real excitement around Delphi Technologies, up more than 62% in response to this $1.5 billion offer from Borg Warner. Of course, on the other side of the coin, Borg Warner is the worst performer on the day in the S&P 500. It's down more than 6%. So you have that going on. I mean, you have some positives on the earnings front for sure. Notably Xerox, since, we're talking deals here. I mean, they've been back and forth with HP, trying to take them over. Of course, you're talking about bringing together Xerox, which is big on office electronics, and then HP, which is computers and printers. And, Xerox's earnings look good.
Anand Srinivasan was on earlier last week, actually, talking about the results and how the PC is coming back. Right? We were talking about Intel and how the PC is actually gaining steam again. And I said, what's next? Xerox machines? Is that what you're telling me, that Xerox machines are hot?
Well, no, it comes down to, in this case, the focus is on Xerox going after HP. It's kind of like the minnow swallowing the whale in a sense, because Xerox market value, even with today's gain, just $8 billion, HP at $31.5 billion. So, it's a matter of kind of expanding in what you might call more traditional kind of technology businesses. As far as, Xerox's results specifically, you got earnings beating estimates for the 6th straight quarter. So it's the sort of thing that gets people excited at least. It's not like, that everybody's going out and buying copiers or whatever, but nonetheless, it's still, a viable business for sure. And then the question is what happens on the deal front.
Interesting. So We're about how far are we into earnings season now, Dave? About a third or so?
Not even that far, because things really don't start picking up until tomorrow. I mean, you're only about a fifth of the way through at this point. And, what's interesting, the folks at Bloomberg Intelligence, they kind of pay attention to where are earnings relative to where analysts expected them to be when the quarter began. And when you run the numbers, the short answer is there's not a whole lot of difference yet. And typically, we see analysts being on the pessimistic side. So the results come through, companies beat projections, and that's still happening, though not quite as much as it ordinarily does. But you're not seeing, at least not yet, any pickup in terms of the fourth quarter for the S&P 500 overall when it comes to profits. Still down 1% and change.
3M. Problems. What's going on over there?
Yeah, look, you've got Delphi and Borg Warner getting together, right? That tells you maybe the auto parts business isn't so great. That's an issue for 3M. The electronics business isn't so great for 3M. I mean, when you're in so many areas as they are, think about, medical equipment and Post-it notes and you name it. I mean, let's face it, you're going to have issues, and they have them at this point, and they're cutting jobs, they're reorganizing, they're trying to deal with, trade issues, and you name it. I mean, it's a broad brush.
Right. So they're cutting 1,500 jobs. They cited issues in their car parts and electronics units in particular. They also cited a federal subpoena and said that they were going to recast some of the. What's going on? I mean, do we have a sense of what this is? I guess not. They were subpoenaed by a federal grand jury last month regarding discharges in an Alabama facility that may not have had complied with relevant permits. Does that matter?
Well, environmental issues certainly matter for a company like 3M. I mean, think about General Electric as an example of all the issues they've faced over the years. Maybe we don't have a great handle on how significant it is at this point. I mean, 3M shares, though, they are definitely taking a hit here.
Dave, are you surprised that we're not having follow through from yesterday's sell-off, that we are, in fact, seeing a slight bounce back to the market here? It seems like the incremental news overnight wasn't better, maybe even worse, and now we're starting to see the CDC is saying Americans should avoid travel to China during the outbreak.
Well, maybe it's that people are starting to get a handle on just what's happening here. And, here's another thing. I went back and I just looked at the chart of the S&P 500. Now, I'm no chart watcher, but you can draw
a line. Is that a joke? Sorry.
No, it's just facts.
You have a chart. Okay, no, I guess you're not a technical analyst. You're not a chart watcher at that. But you have a chart of the day, and you should sign up for his chart of the day, which is always fabulous.
At D. Wilson at Bloomberg.net.
There you go.
But I digress. Now, what's interesting is if you go back to the lows of early October, you can sort of draw a line from there to the lows of early December to where we were the last couple of days. And what it does, it shows you that sort of the trend that has been in place for the last 4.5 months or so, 3.5, depending on how you count, it really hasn't broken yet. And maybe that's enough for people to say, hey, this is an opportunity to buy given the decline that we've seen. So, you still sort of have that working in the market's favor.
So just if you give us a sense of where we are in earnings, we're perhaps a quarter of the way through. I think that's probably fair, plus or minus. And you are seeing a positive trend when it comes to sales and revenue beats. Is it enough to give us a sense that there is some sort of momentum that perhaps hasn't fully been priced in?
Well, I will tell you exactly, according to our EA function on the Bloomberg terminal, it says 106 companies have reported so far, so you're just over a fifth. Things are coming in positive. Is it really going to be enough to justify the optimism? So far, it's looking that way, but there's still a lot to be proven. I think that's probably the best way to sum it up.
And we've got Apple after the close, so that'll be for the tech folks and people getting a sense of, how the consumer's doing and buying phones and wearables and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get the Apple news will be important.
Oh, yeah. And this from UBS's Chief Investment Officer unit. They said that earnings revision trends are now the best since last spring, and they talked about how 2/3 of the 22% of the S&P 500 that have reported so far have beaten sales and EPS estimates. So on that front, we are seeing a positive trend.
And once again, thanks to Dave Wilson, I learned a new Bloomberg function today. EA. Bloomberg Stocks Editor Dave Wilson, thanks so much for joining us, giving us the thoughts.
I'm no chart watcher.
Yes.
I mean, it depends what that means. But he watches charts all day.
He's got the chart of the day, and D. Wilson at Bloomberg.net, as I think I recall. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Right now, let's head over to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is now urging Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China, joining the State Department in issuing that advisory as China continues to grapple with a coronavirus outbreak that has now claimed 106 lives and led Hong Kong to suspend rail links and restrict flights to the mainland starting on Friday. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam spoke through a face mask and an interpreter as she made that announcement.
Given the gravity of the epidemic, to further reduce the flow of people between the two places and reduce necessary commutes.
Cases are also reported in the U.S., Canada, France, and Germany, though not nearly at the levels as in China. President Trump's lawyers wrap up their arguments in the Senate impeachment trial today. An administration official tells Bloomberg they plan to only take up about 2 more hours before opening the floor to questions from senators that could last up to 16 hours. White House counsel Pat Cipollone yesterday.
The articles before you do not allege a crime or even any violation of the civil law.
But Republican Senator Mitt Romney says he wants to hear from former National Security Advisor John Bolton after reports the president told him he wanted aid to Ukraine frozen until it investigated Joe Biden. A U.S. defense official says the remains of 2 American service members have been recovered from the crash of an Air Force plane in Afghanistan. The American recovery team have reportedly met no Taliban resistance in reaching the crash site, though the Taliban did claim responsibility for shooting that plane down yesterday. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
In the real world, there are no rabbits in hats, crystal balls, or cards that turn into money. Instead, you get business information from top-tier analysts and experts.
What should expectations be for this latest round of negotiations?
That's actually better, isn't it?
They're both trying to say they have the upper hand.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
My name is Hunter Hayes. I know myself, and I know my buzzed warning signs. One shot is about knowing my limits, or not necessarily knowing my limits.
I start with one shot to have a good time.
One of the signs that I'm starting to feel a little buzzed is when I start solving not only my own problems, but the entire world's problems. When I know I'm going out, I know I'm going to start with calling for a ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Boredom, fitness enemy number 1. So don't just run. Run, run, mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip, mix it, run. Mix it.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
All right, Stan, will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
Don't miss Super Bowl 54 because you can't watch the game on TV.
Lights hit over the left guard. Touchdown.
Listen to every second of the action with your phone, tablet, computer, or connected device. All you need is a TuneIn Premium subscription.
Search Premium to upgrade today.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks have come off the worst sell-off in, 4 months? Speculation is now that global efforts to contain the coronavirus will prevent a major economic problem. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.75% up 24. Dow's up 0.5% up 143, and the Nasdaq's up 0.8% up 77. 10 years down 7/32. The yield is 1.63%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 0.6%, 53.46 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.5% at 15.7640 an ounce. The dollar yen is at 109.17. The euro at $1.10.03. And the British pound, $1.29.99. The U.S. consumer confidence increased by more than expected to a 5-month high for the month of January on brighter views of labor market conditions. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
U.S. consumer confidence rises to the highest level in 5 months. That's what we learned today from the Conference Board's index, climbing to a 131.2 124.6 level versus December was at 128.2. So a very strong consumer. That's consistent with what we've seen across this economy for some time, suggesting that the Fed can, in fact, remain on the sidelines. To get a sense of kind of where interest rates may be trending, we welcome our good friend Ira Jersey. He's a chief U.S. interest rate strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. Ira, so we got some more strong news today. How do you think that's going to impact what we hear from the Fed tomorrow at 2 o'clock Wall Street time?
I think that they'll continue with the theme that the manufacturing sector is still a worry, and that they are worried about some external factors, trade wars, and obviously the potential for a pandemic to slow global economic growth. But at the same time, the U.S. consumer still seems to be on decent footing. I think that's exactly like what you said, Paul. I think for interest rates, like for the longer term interest rates, it probably means that we can arrest the rally that we've seen so far this month, at least until we get additional economic data. So once we start to see the January data, that will really be when say 10-year treasuries will likely get their next cue from.
Ira, I'm looking right now at 2-year treasury yields. Okay, they're not down, but they're like barely up. I mean, they're right now 1.44%. And this is after a pretty steep plunge in the past 5 sessions because of the coronavirus that was spreading. First of all, could the spread of the coronavirus prompt the Fed to cut rates?
I think it could. I mean, it depends on a lot of factors, but obviously if global growth slows meaningfully and the Federal Reserve thinks that will affect inflation and importantly inflation expectations, then yeah, it's possible that the Fed will cut. And the way that I think you can read where the 2-year is and where some other short-term rate instruments are pricing right now is you can read it as the Fed's either not going to do anything, or if they end up cutting, they're going to cut 2 times.
Okay.
Right. So basically it's like a 75%, 50% chance of them on hold and a 50% chance of them cutting twice.
Okay, it's either them taking out the bazooka or waving the peace flag. It's one or the other, but nothing in between.
Much, yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out, just walk me through this. I mean, what is the criteria? What are the criteria for the Federal Reserve at this point if the spread of a virus could cause them to cut rates? I mean, what's sort of their threshold for when they act?
Well, I think number one is you'd see 3 or 4 months. I mean, the likelihood that they actually do much of anything before June, I think, is pretty low. But you see, 3 or 4 months of job growth that's basically stagnant. You wind up seeing wages falling to stagnant, and also inflation expectations coming off. Now, inflation expectations are down 10 basis points over the last week, and that's one of the reasons why you've seen a significant rally in 10-year treasuries, is because inflation expectations have come down a lot, and a large portion of that is the idea that the consumer is not going to be getting the services that they need because people might stay home. I mean, look, we've seen all kinds of companies and countries making warnings about going outside, right? So if you wind up with slower economic activity in a large part of the global economy, that's going to have an impact in the U.S. And I think that's where we go. Now, will that happen? I'm actually skeptical whether or not I don't think that's actually going to end up being the end game, but that's maybe taking too optimistic of a view of what something like this can have on the global economic outlook. But the 2-year treasuries are where they are, Lisa, primarily because people think that the Federal Reserve is going to hike a couple of times this year.
Cut, not hike.
Cut. I'm sorry. Yes.
Because I suggested potentially what would cause the Fed to raise interest rates, but Lisa shut me down immediately on that discussion. She rejected that. She rejected that.
That hurdle for 2020 at least is amazingly high.
Okay.
I mean, that's you would have to see some ridiculous rebound in the U.S. and the global economy.
Ira, do you reject that?
Ira's much more polite in kind of discounting my rate hike scenario. So, Ira, let's go to the balance sheet, liquidity in the marketplace. I think the last time we chatted, you were talking about the Fed kind of letting the balance sheet grow maybe in line with the economy. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
It is, and I think during the press conference that Chair Powell might actually give us a clue as to when that will happen. So we do think that the Fed is going to continue to buy T-bills, Treasury bills in pretty large size into April. But after that, we kind of want to know what their shift is going to be to their organic balance sheet growth ideal, and I think that's where they'll go. The other thing that you look out for, and this is the one the one thing that I think the market has priced correctly, is the idea that the Federal Reserve might actually raise the interest paid on excess reserves by 5 basis points, just to call it a reverse tweak, basically to keep the federal funds rate within the range, because the federal funds rate has gone down and is pretty close to the bottom end of the range. So the idea is that they raise interest paid on reserves to try and get the Fed funds rate just a little bit higher into the middle of the range.
Just real quick here, I'm looking right now at a curve. It's steepening a little bit today, but has been flattening pretty significantly over the past few sessions. And I'm wondering, given the fact that people are expecting at least the weight to be toward easing further, does that indicate the Fed is kind of out of ammunition here?
Well, it does at some level, and primarily because with nominal interest rates as low as they are, as interest rates get lower and the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates, the chances for things like large-scale asset purchases or QE, it goes up, and that's why I think you're going to continue to see rallies in the long end as interest rates go down, and then the same thing like you're seeing today, a little bit of steepening as the market sells off.
Ira Jersey, thank you so much, as always, for your insights. Ira Jersey, Chief U.S. Interest Rate Strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. And right now, after getting those positive jobs confidence numbers, really, it's the confidence is so strong among consumers. After that, you're seeing yields basically flatten or tick up just a touch after declining pretty significantly. Yields lower, price higher as people poured into the haven of U.S. Treasuries. I'm Lisa Abramois along with Paul Sweeney. Coming up, we're going to take a look at Huawei and how the United Kingdom is leaning on them for their infrastructure push. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are rebounding after yesterday's slide. Investors are focused on the international efforts to contain the coronavirus from spreading. 3M said it will eliminate 1,500 jobs as part of a global restructuring. 2019 was a rough year for the Post-it and Scotch tape maker. 3M has trimmed its profit forecast multiple times because of the trade dispute and a slowdown in demand in the automotive and electronics markets. Harley-Davidson's quarterly profit and revenue missed estimates in the fourth quarter as the motorcycle maker's sales slump continued. U.S. retail sales dropped 3.1%, the 12th consecutive quarterly decline. The company has struggled to attract younger customers, and cheaper used bikes are eroding demand for new ones. And Papa John's board member and spokesman Shaquille O'Neal has been getting word out on the company's new hybrid pizza sandwich called the Papadilla, ahead of its February 3rd launch. That's the day after the Super Bowl. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscription.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run, mix it up, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time, skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
On the goal line, scores! It takes it home! Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here. Here's Pietrangelo, he scores! And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. The move, and a shot, they score! From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown.
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to talk Huawei. It looks like the UK is going to do a limited amount of business with the Chinese tech giant. We will dig into that story. Plus, we're going to speak to Lisa Shallett of Morgan Stanley Wealth Management, get her views on the market. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg, what are you looking at?
S&P's up, Paul, and the leaders are technology and financial shares. Chip makers and casino operators, which were among the hardest hit companies during the coronavirus-inspired equity rout yesterday, are rallying. Demand for havens is cooling, and that's sending the 10-year Treasury and gold lower. Drew Mattis at MetLife tells Bloomberg investors were ready for impeachment and trade, but not coronavirus.
Because now you have something that you didn't think about that's come out of left field, so to speak, and it's very difficult to actually price it appropriately. I mean, none of us, no one in the market that I'm aware of, studied biodefense or whatever the heck you would study to make sure that you understood how this was all going to play out.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio, and it looks like some optimism in the fight against coronavirus. S&P is up 0.9%, up 28. The Dow's up 0.6%, up 173. And the Nasdaq's up over 1%, up 93. The 10-year's down 10.30 seconds. The yield is 1.64%. West Texas Intermediate crude's in the green, up 1.25% at 53.81 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.6% at 15.7480 per ounce. The dollar yen 109.17. The euro $1.1001, and the British pound $1.2994. 3M's down the most. 9 months. after revealing it had received a grand jury subpoena in an environmental probe saying it would cut 1,500 jobs. 3M is down 4.6%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Well, the United Kingdom has announced that they do plan to rely on Huawei for at least part of building out their infrastructure network having to do with 5G. This raises some awkwardness between the UK and the United States. Let's bring in Therese Raphael, a Bloomberg Opinion editor covering all things European for us from our London bureau. And Therese, I just want to get a sense of this issue. What is the incentive for the United Kingdom to turn to Huawei, and what are the pressures against it?
Well, it was a devilish decision for Boris Johnson to make. So the incentives are that Huawei is already very ensconced in the UK market. When BT some years ago began upgrading its infrastructure, Huawei was brought in to help with that. It's been in the UK for years. It's a fairly substantial investor. Taking Huawei out of it completely, banning Huawei, unlike in the US where it already doesn't have a presence, would have been very costly. And those costs would have come on top of the economic costs of Brexit, which, as you know, happens on Friday. Officially, though, the UK loses access to the EU single market probably as of the end of this year. So Boris Johnson, as part of his campaign, promised high-speed, fast broadband access to every household. 5G is very much a part of that offering, and having accepted the U.S. argument that Huawei is a security threat and banning Huawei would have come with pretty serious economic costs, and would also have angered the Chinese. Johnson at this point is trying to build Britain's economic relationships with other countries as it leaves the EU.
Well, Trez, one of the countries that Boris Johnson has said he's going to negotiate a trade deal with is the United States, and presumably this decision as it relates to Huawei is going to create a lot of tension with the Trump administration. What do you think the calculus is there?
Yeah, well, they lobbied incredibly hard. There were high-level security briefings done. Secretary of State Pompeo even tweeted that this would be a compromise of Britain's sovereignty, using the main argument that Brexiters had given for leaving the EU. It's not clear what the blowback will be. Trump promised Britain a massive trade deal. I don't think there's any prospect of a massive trade deal this year, partly because of the U.S. election timetable, partly just because these things take a long time to negotiate, and Britain doesn't want to give up a lot of the things that America would want in those negotiations. Now, one of the key questions is whether security cooperation will be compromised because of this. There were, some threats from the U.S. or some hints that the U.S. would not be able to fully cooperate in the Five Eyes security network that includes Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Britain, and the U.S. if the UK allowed Huawei into its network. Now, Johnson has compromised here. He's restricted Huawei to the non-core parts of the 5G network. He's also limited their market share, and he's hoping that will do the trick. I think that remains to be seen. I think there will be some repercussions in terms of the U.S. relationship, but it is a very wide and deep relationship, and I doubt that Britain is going to be somehow cut off from its special relationship simply because of this one decision.
Therese, from a 30,000-foot level, what's the exact security concern here with Huawei and the infrastructure?
Yeah, so the security concern is that there could be backdoors that are invisible to those checking Huawei's networks and Huawei's systems that could allow the Chinese government to access data to spy, effectively to spy. Now, the Chinese have a law which requires any Chinese company or individual to cooperate with the government if requested. Huawei's a Chinese company. Therefore, the thinking goes, if the Chinese government wanted to use Huawei for spying purposes, then Huawei would be in no position to resist.
Trez, is this being spun as a political win for Boris Johnson in the UK?
No, I don't think so. It was surprising how much pushback he got from his own party. Some very prominent conservatives, including former Foreign Secretary William Hague, conservative MP Tom Tugendhat, the journalist Charles Moore, all said, this is a very dangerous thing. There was, I think Tom Tugendhat called it nesting the dragon, allowing Huawei into the UK. So I think he will feel happy if he kind of comes out of this unscathed, if the criticism sort of dies down. And really what he was balancing was the short term, had he instituted a blanket Huawei ban, the immediate cost would have been very real and substantial. Whereas the cost to him of this sort of compromise, there's some short term political cost, but then you don't really know if the risk he's taken pans out until the long term. So I don't think it's a political win. I think he will hope to scrape through this and move on to other things.
Therese Raphael, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your opinion. Therese is a Bloomberg Opinion editor covering European politics and economics, joining us from our London bureau. And of course, you can read Therese's work and that of Bloomberg Opinion at bloomberg.com/opinion and on the terminal by typing in OPIN GO. So very big decision by Boris Johnson, one of the first after the Brexit win, shows the independence of the UK right now. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
And Paul, this will be the final day of arguments in President Trump's Senate impeachment trial. An administration official tells Bloomberg the president's counsel is only planning to take another 2 hours to make the case against removing him from office. Then 16 hours of senators' questions would begin tomorrow. That's according to a GOP aide. House managers who are prosecuting the case want to hear witnesses, especially former National Security Advisor John Bolton. Manager Val Demings on CNN.
I would think that there is no senator, or should not be a senator in that chamber, who after hearing this information from that Ambassador Bolton may have, would not want to hear his testimony.
Republican Senator Mitt Romney also says he'd like to hear from Bolton. Fellow Republican Lindsey Graham writes on Twitter he'd like Bolton's manuscript made available, perhaps in a classified setting, so senators can make their own determination. Today, President Trump releases his long-awaited Middle East peace plan. He's holding a White House news conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at noon Wall Street time. Bloomberg Radio will bring it to you live. Both Netanyahu and his centrist rival Benny Gantz have embraced the plan. A key element will be whether it includes U.S. approval for Israel annexing parts of the West Bank. Palestinians want that territory in a future state. A South African billionaire has apologized for telling President Trump, quote, Africa loves you during the World Economic Forum in Davos last week. Businessman Patrice Motsepe's remark went viral on social media. It sparked a backlash even from some South African cabinet members. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run. Mix it up. Skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up. Lift. Mix it up. Run, lift, splash. Skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up. Run, mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash. Skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
3 is a magic number. 300 schemes to help bugs and bees, supporting environmental needs. 8,000 grants for local sports, and performing arts get our support. 7 millionaires every week, the nation's on a winning streak. 30 million pounds to good causes every week. Who'd have thought it? These are magic numbers.
Your numbers make amazing happen. The National Lottery.
Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Do you do the same thing every weekend? You know, meet up with the same friends for brunch, browse around the same shops, eat the same Saturday night takeaway. Mine's a lamb balti with mushroom pilau rice. Snuggle up next to the same person and watch the same brain-numbing reality TV. Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, taking the long view on prison.
In 100 years, we're not going to be locking human beings in cages, because we'll understand then, as we understand about slavery now, that it was immoral, that it just didn't work.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The picture turned rosier for stocks today following the worst sell-off in 4 months yesterday for both the S&P and the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The comeback comes as speculation grows that global efforts to contain the coronavirus will prevent any major economic fallout. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up over 1% now, up 32. The Dow's up 0.75%, up 216. And the Nasdaq's up 1.2%, up 109. 10 years down, 11.30 seconds, with a yield of 1.64%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1.25% at 53.80 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.6% at 15.7420 an ounce. The dollar yen, 109.17. The euro, $1.1003, and the British pound, $1.2982. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, after that big sell-off yesterday, we're seeing markets rebound pretty strongly here with the S&P up about 1%. We had some very good consumer confidence data come out this morning, so that's clearly supporting the market. To get a sense of kind of where we are right now, we welcome Lisa Shallett. She's a Chief Investment Officer, Wealth Management at Morgan Stanley. They got like $1 gajillion under management, $2.48 trillion to be more precise. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So how do you put yesterday and today kind of in context? Because folks out there driving around, they're saying, wow, yesterday was really ugly, but what's causing today's bounce back?
So yesterday was very much about a classical global growth scare. And we get these every now and then, and they very often lead to market sell-offs. And, the idea is basically that the nascent rebound that we have potentially we're beginning to see might get curtailed by the spread of coronavirus and the idea that the rebound that may have begun in China gets stalled. And I think that that's really what the markets were obsessed with yesterday. All that being said, when the dust settles and the markets, sold off, I think there are a lot of investors who believe rightfully that the U.S. is disconnected in many ways from the global economy, is kind of in oasis. Only 9% of net GDP, of net trade, is related, of GDP is related to trade. And so in many ways, the U.S. is very much a domestic-oriented economy. And so you come into today with ample liquidity, still extraordinary sentiment and positioning, people wanting to be long this market, and you get a little piece of data that says the U.S. consumer, which is 70% of the mix, is still feeling good, and people are willing to say, yeah, we're going to weather this storm too.
Yeah, the storm being a 1.6% decline yesterday, and today we're up almost 1%. So these huge moves are sort of infinitesimal in a historical perspective, but nowadays, I guess, volatility has been killed. But I am curious. Right now, we're seeing financial conditions at all-time easiest ever based on a Chicago Fed and St. Louis Fed measures coming out in the past few weeks. CapEx, though, continuing to trend lower. U.S. GDP growth still only 2%. I'm trying to square the idea of relatively sluggish growth, lack of wage inflation, lack of capital expenditures on the part of companies with this incredibly strong job confidence and just really low jobless rates. What am I missing? These pieces don't seem to go together.
Yes, they don't. And so, what we have very often said is, look, the lack of inflation in the real economy has completely shown up in financial asset markets. We know that for the past 11 years, we've been in a pretty profound bull market where U.S. stocks have compounded at about 14%, which is 2 times normal. We think a lot of the provision of Fed liquidity, and you noted financial conditions among the easiest they've ever been, that liquidity has found its way to financial assets and been recycled not into fundamental capital spending and fundamental capital formation, but into share repurchases and a return of capital to shareholders. So there's been this huge wealth transfer, and many of our clients and certainly investors in the stock markets have benefited from that. But that's where the inflation is. In the real economy itself has really been struggling over this last decade with reasonably weak working age population growth and reasonably weak productivity growth. And so we've kind of been bouncing around this 2 to 3%. And even though we have low unemployment, we have not seen wage pressures. And so as a result, we haven't seen the classical capital for labor substitution effects that you typically get end of cycle. What we've seen is companies saying, hey, I can get away with hiring people. I don't have to really pay them anything. I don't have to give them wage increases. So I'll just, I'll hold them in there as long as the cycle holds up as good enough. And we've been in this good enough.
So Lisa, I'm looking at your tactical asset allocation, and in global equities, underweight the U.S., but overweight emerging markets international. What's your thoughts behind that?
So look, our thoughts there are really around relative valuation. We've been in this period, as we talked about, for the last 11 years, where U.S. markets have profoundly outperformed the other regions. And as a result, we have a very, very strong U.S. dollar. So as we look at relative valuations today, we see the U.S. in really the top decile of PE ratios for the last 100 years. It's getting to be an expensive market. We know that on an equity risk premium basis or adjusted for low interest rates, valuations are not yet extreme. But in terms of nominal PEs, the U.S. market is really, getting expensive at 19 times forward. So our view is that as we look into 2020, the improvement in global growth that we thought was going to come both cyclically and from the trade deal, really we think has the highest beta outside the U.S. We just talked about the fact that the U.S. is kind of an isolated economy. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, global growth and global trade are going to pick up and the U.S. is going to benefit, when you just said, hey, the U.S. is its own story. So we have favored non-U.S. markets this year, basically believing that there's more operating leverage and better valuations.
How long can this disconnect continue where the inflation really is in assets and not in the real economy?
So I think we're starting to approach the point of pain, and that's where valuations start begging belief. And our sense is we're starting to see examples of that. We think that the history books are going to reflect the WeWork debacle as maybe an example of valuations becoming disconnected. And certainly a lot of folks have said, no, that's just an idiosyncratic situation. But we see examples of it, whether we're looking at valuations in VC or we're looking at some of the valuations that are being paid in the private equity markets, et cetera.
That's fascinating. This is really, really interesting. Lisa Shallett, thank you. This was great. You'll have to come back and we'll have to talk more. But the idea to me of this disconnect and that the inflation in this cycle has been seen in assets and not in the real economy is something that is fascinating and a conundrum that central banks, frankly, are going to have to deal with for a long time if they're the main drivers of keeping the market going. Lisa Shallett, Chief Investment Officer focusing on wealth management for Morgan Stanley, joining us here in our interactive broker studios. And sure enough, we're seeing that buy the dip mentality come into full effect today with the rally extending its session highs. NASDAQ 1.2% gains now. S&P up 1%, and the Dow Jones up 0.8%, almost erasing yesterday's decline, which was the biggest decline in the S&P 500 and NASDAQ of 2020. At less than 2% of a decline. I mean, again, these sort of big, huge swings are absolutely nothing in the scheme of history, but evidently we don't get volatility anymore. Doesn't happen.
No, looking at the VIX here, below 16 right here, 15.9.
There you go. I'm Lisa Abramowitz with Paul Sweetie. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Welcome to Nuffield Health Battersea, a gym built around you. You get regular health MOTs to create a plan that works for you, with physios and personal trainers on site. You'll find a wide range of equipment and classes, and our expert team will support you to get the most out of your health, fitness, and your membership. Join today to get the rest of the month free. Search Nuffield Health. Specialists in you. 12-month commitments only. Facilities stated are in most gyms. Visit nuffieldhealth.com/terms.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run, mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Mix it. Run.
Mix it. At Asda, our baby event is now on. A 47-pack of Pampers Premium Protection size 3 nappies was £7, now £4.25. And a 12-pack of sensitive wipes was £10, now £7. Big baby brands, tiny prices. Don't compromise. Asda, save money, live better. Selected stores online, subject to availability.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Hello, I'm your captain for today's Virgin Atlantic flight. Please drop everything and pay close attention to the following announcement. The sail is now on. Our crew are ready to take your bags and stresses away. The cocktails are ready to serve, the movies are loaded, and we're all set for takeoff to the Caribbean. So, take your seat in our award-winning economy class. We're ready to go when you are.
The Virgin Atlantic sail. Fly amazing for less. For more details, visit virginatlantic.com.
Oh my days, it's storming the charts at 169.
And last over the line, number 169. You're 169 in line to the throne.
The number 169 never screamed going places until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go, Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of March 2020. £3,311.25p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, we're going to take a look at the ever-strong U.S. consumer. Consumer confidence hits a 5-month high on job views. Plus, we're going to preview Apple earnings out after the close with Bloomberg Intelligence analyst John Butler. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
All investors are wearing their rally hats today. Stocks have rebounded from the worst sell-off in 4 months. Speculation the global efforts to contain the coronavirus will prevent any major economic fallout. Gabriela Santos, though, at J.P. Morgan Asset Management, tells Bloomberg the coronavirus story has yet to fully play out in the markets.
The way that we've been thinking about the virus, I would say, is we're still in the early phases for the market, where to focus on contagion and on severity, and we don't have the clear picture quite yet. What tends to happen is the market really bottoms as the cases start to plateau.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. In the green, the S&P's up over 1%, up 32. The Dow's up 0.8%, up 219. And the Nasdaq's up 1.2%, up 107. The 10-year is down 8/30 seconds. The yield is 1.63%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up just about 1% at 53.65 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 0.5% at 15.7550 per ounce. The dollar yen 109.13. The euro $1.10 even, and the British pound $1.2982. Harley Davidson capped its 5th straight annual U.S. sales decline with quarterly profit and revenue that missed estimates. Right now, Hog is down nearly 4%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues now with Lisa and Paul.
Strong sound effect game. Thank you, Greg. Right now, Bloomberg Markets brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. And this is it. It is my favorite segment of the day. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, joining us here in our interactive broker studios to update us on the race between small caps and large caps, which has absolutely been tilted to the large caps. Where are we today?
Yeah, pretty much even.
Oh, come on with that setup. You can't do that.
Smaller companies are just behind a touch, really. I mean, the Russell 2000 index up more than 0.9%. So is the S&P 500. So, you're talking about small fractions of difference between those two benchmark indexes. I will tell you this, though. Biggest gain in the Russell belongs to Acceleron Pharmaceuticals, whose ticker is XLRN. The drug developers jumped almost 45.5%. Acceleron's proposed treatment for a lung disorder had favorable results in a second-stage study. Laureate Education, ticker LAUR, has climbed 15%. The operator of for-profit schools hired Goldman Sachs to review options for its businesses. And Cytosorbents, ticker CTSO, was added almost 7%. The blood purification company said its technology may be able to help treat coronavirus patients. Now, the Russell's steepest decline belongs to Tesco Technologies, ticker TESS. The distributor of wireless equipment has dropped more than 27%. Tesco reported an unexpected loss for the fiscal third quarter and cut its dividend by 90%. And Flex Steel Industries, ticker FLXS, has fallen about 12%. The furniture maker posted a loss for its fiscal second quarter as sales dropped 13%.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Well, the U.S. consumer continues to be the backbone of the U.S. economic growth. Today we got some more data confirming that, with consumer confidence coming in better than expected. To help us break down the numbers, we welcome Lynn Franco. She is the Director of Economic Indicators at the Conference Board, joining us on the phone. Lynn, thanks so much for joining us. What did your data show this morning they released?
Well, we've seen an increase in consumer confidence. It's currently at its highest level now since the summer of 2019, which is relatively good news. And it's really just being supported by job growth. And we expect more solid job growth, as do consumers, in the coming months. So we're likely to remain at these high levels, at least for the early half of 2020.
Lynn, do we have a sense of what kind of jobs people are confident they can get?
Well, what we're seeing really is it's a very tight labor market, especially blue-collar jobs. So that's the area where I think we'll see the tightness probably increase in the coming months. But overall, they're just very optimistic about, job prospects over the next 6 months.
So, Lynn, again, we've been talking about this, the U.S. economy and how the manufacturing and business investment areas are weak, but compensated by the consumer, the strength in the consumer. Is that something you expect to play out for the remainder of 2020?
Well, at least for the early months of 2020, definitely. We think the consumer is going to remain very confident due to the labor market strength. And we think that that's going to be enough to really support consumer spending and prevent the economy from slowing in early 2020.
When you talk about how you're seeing the real labor tightness in the blue-collar sector, I'm wondering, there's a question raised by the incredibly strong jobs market and the consumer confidence that seems incredibly solid. Why are we not seeing that kind of labor market tightness reflected in the wage gains? And I'm wondering, is it partly because the job markets that are tightest are ones that don't pay as much as others? Is that what we're seeing?
Well, that's exactly what we're sort of seeing. I mean, the tightness really is sort of amongst the blue-collar jobs. Now, we've benefited from wage growth due to labor shortages, less so, I think, in the higher-paying or more, higher-paying jobs. While there is some tightness, it's not as severe, and therefore wage growth has been less so.
So, Lynn, what's the biggest concern for you as you think about your economic forecast for 2020? It seems like consensus is kind of 2% GDP growth. What do you think the biggest risk to the economy is?
I think the biggest risk right now would be the consumer, right? Because the consumer has been supporting growth for much of 2019. We're expecting that trend to continue into 2020. So if we begin to see sort of any, weakness in the labor market, which is key to consumer confidence, that could then probably signal a pullback in spending. But for now, we expect the labor market to continue expanding at a solid pace. and that should then translate into high confidence levels and continued consumer spending.
Lynn Franco, thank you so much for being with us. Lynn Franco is Senior Director of Economic Indicators and Surveys at the Conference Board, talking about those January consumer confidence numbers that we got out that actually really moved the markets, actually more than usual, sending yields higher on the day, Treasury yields, price lower, yields higher, and sending the rally to a new level here in equities. I mean, I'm laughing because it's funny that we called yesterday a sell-off and today's a rally. We're almost completely recovering, at least if we continue on this trajectory, completely recovering from yesterday's about 1.5% decline.
Exactly, and I just for one, I was surprised. I thought we were going to wake up and have some continuation of that selling pressure because the incremental news overnight as it relates to the coronavirus, if that is in fact what caused the sell-off yesterday, was incrementally certainly not better, and you could argue incrementally worse, as China disclosed that it seems like the rate of new cases being reported accelerated, but I think the consumer confidence coming out of the U.S. just suggested that perhaps we're a little bit immune here, at least for the time being, from some of the potential economic impacts coming as well. Well,
and there also is a question, and John Farrow and I were hashing it out this morning in an animated fashion about how much the Fed is driving everything that we're seeing right now, and how much that's sort of the backstop. And given the fact that the Federal Reserve is expanding its balance sheet at the fastest pace since the early 2010s, that's really the main driver here beyond anything fundamental, especially at a time of uncertainty, and especially when you have that uncertainty feeding into higher rate cutting expectations from the Federal Reserve. But today we are seeing, in particular, the shares rally of some of the hardest hit companies yesterday, including chip makers and casino operators. So truly a buy the dip moment.
Exactly. We're going to preview some Apple earnings in just a couple minutes, but the Apple stock up 2% here today. So that's also lifting the tech sector as well.
Yeah, even though Apple's supply chain is actually very closely linked to the entire Wuhan region, which has been affected and effectively shuttered in the wake of the coronavirus. Right now, let's head over to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, speaking of coronavirus, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is now joining with the State Department in urging travelers to avoid non-essential trips to China as the country races to contain the outbreak that has killed more than 100 people there. The CDC says the risk to Americans remains low, but precautions are needed to stop the virus's spread. They're adding screeners at 20 U.S. airports that handle the bulk of passenger traffic from China. This will be the final day of arguments in President Trump's impeachment trial. An administration official tells Bloomberg White House counsel only plan to take up another 2 hours. Then senators will begin 16 hours of questions for both sides tomorrow. Now, so far, White House lawyers have mostly sidestepped revelations from former National Security Advisor John Bolton's book draft that tied the freeze on Ukraine aid to political investigations. Retired Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz argued yesterday, even if it were true, it wouldn't be impeachable. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin.
To have him say to us, listen, don't bring a witness in. There's nothing he could possibly say of importance or relevance. Give me a break, Professor. You can say that in your classroom, but in the real world, we believe that people under oath telling the truth are the best way for us to have an outcome in this trial that is credible across America.
A vote on whether to call witnesses could come by Friday. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is backing a proposal that would allow senators to review Bolton's manuscript in a classified setting. The investigation continues into the helicopter crash in Southern California that killed Kobe Bryant and 8 others. The National Transportation Safety Board says that chopper did not have the so-called black boxes familiar from fixed-wing aircraft. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Our relationship with Asia is simple. Find the most experienced journalists.
These countries will need each other more and more in the future.
Let them gather the best data and experts.
Let's get to Singapore now and our guest.
Then bring everything they find straight to you.
Let's talk about where you are. There's quite a lot of headwinds there too.
Actually, it's not simple. It's just better. Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run, mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time, skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class, skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run.
Mix it. Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Want to kit out your new kitchen for less? Get to B&Q. We've 20% off all kitchen sinks, taps and appliances when you spend £2,500 on a beautifully designed and affordable good home kitchen. Hurry, offer ends 2nd of February. You can do it when you B&Q it. In-store orders only, maximum 10 appliances, excludes clearance, see DIY.com.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Every major industry in the S&P is up, with tech shares and banks leading the charge. Some of the companies that suffered the biggest losses during the coronavirus-inspired equity rout yesterday, such as chip makers, casino operators, and airlines, are rallying today. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day. S&P 500's up 1%, up 32. The Dow's up 0.7%, up 204. And the Nasdaq's up 1.2%, up 111. The 10-year is down 8.30 seconds. The yield is 1.63%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 0.9% at 53.61 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.5%. At 15.7220 an ounce, the dollar yen 109.13, the euro $1.10.05, and the British pound $1.29.81. Home prices in 20 U.S. cities went up the most in November at the fastest pace in 9 months against a backdrop of stronger demand and lean housing inventory. S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller Index of Property Values increased 2.6% from the same month last year. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Apple shares up more than 2% ahead of reporting earnings after the bell today. A lot of questions about just how robust their growth has been, whether it can justify the tremendous rally that we saw last year and some of the estimates that analysts have across Wall Street. But I want to turn our focus to what actually is going on right now. And to help us do that is John Butler, Senior Telecom Services and Equipment Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. And that is the effect of the coronavirus on its supply chain, which may or may not be in the front and center today as they report earnings. But you think it could be potentially substantial, right?
I do. I want to stress I view it sort of as a near-term risk. So Bloomberg did a great piece last night on MLive blog where they talked about epidemics and the typical bell curve that goes with that. So from beginning to peak, it's typically 10 weeks, call it 2.5 months. And that's sort of before the number of cases begins to decline. And so my thought in reading that was that's the risk. That's the window where Beijing could remain proactive about closing down factories, restricting travel, and in general, doing the right thing, but putting measures in place that could threaten the Apple supply chain. So looking ahead to the coming year for Apple, they reportedly are set to launch a lower cost replacement to the old iPhone SE, if you remember that. So it's a lower cost iPhone sort of positioned at the high end of the mid-price market, which is a big segment. But if you're going to launch that in March, you got to start building it in February at the latest. So in my mind, that sets up a near-term risk for them. It could lead to a push out of the introduction of that phone. And God, if this whole scenario plays out longer than that 10-week peak, then ultimately it may even threaten the September refresh. Although, to be clear, I don't see that happening. I think this whole scenario with coronavirus is probably going to play out over a typical bell curve.
So, John, as Apple or any of the other technology companies that have a big presence in China, have they talked about any supply chain disruptions?
They have not. And so I think a lot of people are going to be coming into tonight's Apple report and the earnings call anxious to hear something. I would be amazed if they didn't address it. Already in China, if you look at the retail store base, they have limited the number of hours those stores are open across all of China. So clearly it's on Apple's mind. And they're already taking measures to address the threat of this virus.
All right, so let's get to the big kahuna here, which is the earnings, right?
Quarter
and this
itself.
is going to be the first $2 trillion company, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. They're set up for this great year. You know, the iPhone XS, which sold throughout last year, did not really resonate well with people. And every quarter last year, they booked a double-digit decline in iPhone sales. So we have very low hurdle set up for this year, every quarter this year. And that iPhone 11 that they introduced in September of last year has done really well. by any measure. We're hearing from third-party researchers as well as the tech community. Just in general, I'm seeing a lot of it out there, a lot of iPhone 11s in people's hands. What I think they got so right is they introduced a new camera system. So you've got sort of a hit on your hands, some new devices coming to market.
For his
There's
selfies.
one in Paul Sweeney's
He
hand
takes a
right
lot of
now,
selfies.
so.
He likes the filters. He likes the multiple cameras.
I looked at Tom Keene. Tom Keene posts some amazing photos on Twitter from his iPhone 11. So he's really an aficionado. I just point and push the little point.
He spends entire radio segments filming said videos. It is interesting though, and it's just the idea of phone cum camera. I mean, that's essentially what's happening.
Cameras have become digital. Today's smartphones are digital cameras with a phone app, basically.
Exactly.
And so the phone is, honestly, all kidding aside, it's the most important feature on any smartphone. And I really think Apple did a lights-out job with the iPhone 11, and they lowered the starting price by $50. So it just has done very well, and I think we're going to hear that tonight, and it sets them up for a great year where you have this low bar set from poor performance.
How important is that 5G story to Apple? A lot of bulls are out there saying this is the next major refresh cycle.
I think they're right, but I think it's going to play out over a longer period of time than they think. People don't upgrade immediately to the new technology, so if you look at 4G, it was sort of a multi-year ramp to the point where penetration levels in the U.S. were really meaningful. So I think we'll see the same thing happen this year where we have a decent year of early adopters. The iPhone 5G coming out in September, I think, is going to be a popular device, but it'll take a couple of years to really get out there, so to speak.
I feel like sociologists are going to look at this period of time where it's no longer about the conversation, it's just about how you look. Right. I mean, honestly, I do think that this is going to be a transformation, that people, just want to see themselves and others, but they don't actually want to have
real
banter.
Right, exactly.
And conversations have gone to texting.
Yes,
for the most part.
Guilty.
Yeah, exactly.
Guilty as
Same
charged.
here, by the way.
So. John Butler, thanks so much for joining us. John Butler, Senior Telecom Services and Equipment Analyst, also is the ace on Apple for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Apple reporting numbers after the close. Carol and Jason will have that for you on Bloomberg Business Week. We will actually have all that detail for you. It's going to be a very closely watched quarter, as John Butler mentioned. Coronavirus. What kind of commentary can Apple make, will they make about their exposure? This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks moving higher as investors are digesting the latest international efforts to contain the coronavirus from spreading. A deal in the auto supply business. Borg Warner agreed to acquire Delphi Technologies for about $1.5 billion in an all-stock deal as the car industry makes a transformational shift. The two companies have been investing in products automakers will need for hybrid models that use both gasoline engines and battery power, as well as fully electric vehicles. Former Boeing CEO Dennis Muhlenberg has resigned from the board of Caterpillar, although the company said it's not the result of any disagreement between the two. Muhlenberg was ousted at Boeing on the fallout from the long grounding of the 737 MAX. And McDonald's has added chicken to its breakfast menu. For the first time, customers across the country can wake up to McDonald's Chicken McGriddles and McChicken biscuit breakfast sandwiches for a limited time. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run, mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip, mix it, run. Mix it.
What if your email was organized by project and not by date? What if everyone looked at the same thing instead of their own inbox? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Forget your fragmented, jumbled inbox and make the change to channels in Slack. Spaces dedicated to individual projects, topics, or teams. All your communication is neatly organized and everyone is on the same page. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Look at that. A riveting quest. A glorious opportunity. A scratch card. Yet he remains unfazed by the challenge, wavering at nothing.
Miss, please keep it down. We're in the quiet area.
Sorry. Here we are. The moment of truth. As he reaches...
Instant excitement with scratch cards from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Search Dream Big, Play Small. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
At Butlins, there's no waiting on the sidelines for a holiday filled with exciting activities day and night for all the family. Book online now for February half term. Are you ready to Butlins?
Do you go on the same holiday every year? To the same country, in the same hotel, with the same sea view, visit the same ancient monuments, lay by the same dolphin-shaped pool, meet the same Barrys and Sandras, and wear the same Hawaiian shirt that you'd never wear at home? Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Heading for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores! Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here. And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we'll talk about oil and how it has absolutely gotten slammed by the spread of the coronavirus, although it is trying to stage a bit of a rebound today. We're going to dig into the dynamics there. Plus, we're going to look at China's response to the spread of the virus with Christopher Balding, Associate Professor at Fulbright University, Vietnam. Right now, let us head over to our own Greg Jarrett, aficionado of sound effects. Love it. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at stocks moving a little bit further into the green right now, Lisa. Technology and financial shares are leading the way for the major indices to recover from the worst sell-off in about 4 months on concerns over the coronavirus outbreak in China and its impact on global growth. Marilyn Watson, BlackRock head of global fundamental fixed income strategy, tells Bloomberg, you have to admit the coronavirus is certainly impacting consumer behavior.
It's impacting everything from travel, hospitality, corporates as well. And I think certainly the measures that we've seen being taken in China as well to basically shut down businesses will have a huge impact. On the other side, we're seeing, a positive impact in, healthcare and areas like that as well. But I think certainly in terms of trade, commodities, we saw the price of oil, a whole range of different sectors, it is having a very negative impact.
An example, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are advising travelers avoid all non-essential trips to China. And companies who have people working there telling them stay at home and work from home. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up over 1%, up 35. The Dow's up 0.8%, up 230. And the Nasdaq's up 1.3%, up 123. The 10-year's down 10.30 seconds. The yield is 1.64%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.1%, 53.75 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.6% at 15.7420 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.17. The euro $1.1008, and the British pound $29.90. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Lisa, some more news crossing the tape here as it relates to the coronavirus. Headline, U.S. expands coronavirus screening to 20 airports. That's up from 5. So we're seeing some expansion. And I understand there's some news on Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah, they say that they're starting to develop a preventive coronavirus vaccine, and they're optimistic that they can start testing this virus vaccine later this year. Looking right now at J&J shares, they're up about 1% on the heels of this disclosure.
Interesting news coming fast and furious as it relates to the coronavirus. We will have it for you here on Bloomberg Radio. Let's take a look at the coronavirus and how it relates to the global energy markets. We saw a sell-off in oil over the last several sessions and really off from the peak of early January here. WTI today, just to quote that's actually staging a little bit of a rebound today, up about 1%. To get a sense of kind of global oil markets and the drivers on the supply and demand side, we welcome John Kildoff, founding partner of Again Capital. So, John, how are you thinking about global oil markets given some of these issues as it relates to the coronavirus as well as some other geopolitical issues globally?
Well, on the demand side of the equation right now, there's just a tremendous fragility as a result of this outbreak of the coronavirus. A lot of us were dusting off the charts from 2003 when the SARS epidemic hit, and oil took quite a hit then. Oil prices were basically just about cut in half, from about $38 a barrel down to almost 25. So quite a bit of a sell-off because, when I talk to you guys about the price dynamic, it's always Asia, and China in particular. There had been some hope that they would be getting back on their feet economically after at least the partial resolution of the U.S.-China trade war, and now this hits, and it's just skewing the demand growth back to down to flat, if not down, on the year. Because this is still early days, if you ask me. I don't quite understand the rush to say the all clear has been sounded here. What we're seeing in the stock market today, and even oil to a degree, we got a long way to go on this.
I want to pick up on that because we are seeing a rally in equities, almost completely erasing yesterday's declines at this point if it continues throughout the day. But oil, it's just flat. Essentially, it's a little up. We're not seeing that big of a price gain. What's going to tip the scales one way or another? It's up 1%, but still, after losing more than $10 in the past month, this is not massive. What will tip the scales one way or another in order to determine whether there's another substantial leg lower in the price of oil?
Yeah, and then Lisa, if you think about it, we've actually retraced 100% or so of the gains from the October lows that we saw. We got as high as $65 on the most intense Iran fears. What's going to tip us to the downside here is is that we don't get another further response out of OPEC and Russia. They were already been on the wires. That this has gotten their attention. I can tell you that they've been talking about it already, about potentially extending their current deal to June at least. They're going to have to go longer than that, and they're going to have to cut more if they want to support this price. The big line in the sand, the first line in the sand here, and we saw it yesterday get tested, was down around 52.13 was the low, but really $50 if you go back several years. That has been the number that has held up. There's a tendency to think it'll hold up again because you will get a response from some of the producers. But if we break that, then you're looking at significant more downside to the low 40s in pretty rapid fashion.
So, Jeff, what's the thinking as it relates to OPEC and it relates to the supply side of the equation? Is there a growing determination to support global oil prices, or we just don't have that coordination within OPEC and OPEC Plus?
It's aspirational on their part. I can tell you that, particularly the Saudis, who finally got that Aramco IPO out the door. They've been watching that stock price come down as the price of oil comes down. So I just want to remind people, if you're looking to buy into that at some point or in some way, shape, or form, you got tremendous exposure to the crude oil commodity. So be careful with that. There's no silver bullet there with that company. And so they're going to try. I mean, they were on the wires all weekend making noise about addressing this slide, and even actually like chastising the analyst community for being overreactive and too aggressive on the demand outlook cuts, which is impacting the price. So I thought that was an interesting thing on their part. That shows you how engaged they are with the price of the commodity these days. So, but there's a sense in the market that it's just beyond their grasp. There's too much U.S. oil. There's too much U.S. exports, and there's even more oil coming on from different spots. That's also helping to keep these global markets rather well supplied.
John Kilduff, thank you so much for the perspective. John Kilduff is the founding partner of Again Capital. Oil right now, crude on the NYMEX trading at $53.70 a barrel. It is up about 1%, was down nearly 2% yesterday and 2.5% the day before. It's been a steady stream of red for oil as people reprice in the face of the coronavirus spread, as well as in general, a sort of tempering of some of the expectations of global growth, because this really has come in tandem with a flattening yield curve and all a host of other kinds of measures that indicate something that may be somewhat beyond the coronavirus, but certainly the question of whether China will be able to contain it. And interesting that John was saying he didn't really see why people were feeling so optimistic as reflected in equity markets and the stabilization in the price of crude. Right now, let's head down to our 1991 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, within the next hour, President Trump is planning to reveal what he has called the ultimate deal, Middle East peace. He is going to hold a White House news conference at noon Wall Street time with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll bring it to you live here on Bloomberg Radio. Ahead of that, thousands of Palestinians have been protesting in Gaza City, burning photos of both Trump and Netanyahu and raising a banner that says Palestine is not for sale. A key element of the president's deal will be whether it endorses Israeli plans to annex parts of the West Bank that Palestinians envision for their future state. All this comes as President Trump's impeachment trial continues in the Senate. White House lawyers plan to wrap up their arguments today over about 2 hours. Then senators will have 16 hours to submit questions to them and House managers. That process is expected to begin tomorrow. After that, will there be witnesses? That's the big question on Capitol Hill, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer still pushing for him.
President Trump and Ambassador Bolton said diametrically opposed things. Only one of them is willing to testify under oath. Who do you believe?
And Schumer says he's not going to haggle on witness trades. Republicans have been pushing for Joe Biden's son, Hunter, to testify. The Centers for Disease Control is advising Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China as that country struggles to contain a coronavirus outbreak that's claimed more than 100 lives. Health Secretary Alex Azar is urging China to cooperate with the U.S. in the investigation. He says the CDC offered to send a team more than 3 weeks ago. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Are you in?
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Run. Skip. Run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up. Lift. Mix it up. Run. Lift. Splash. Skip. Lift. Run. It's crunch time. Skip. Mix it up. Run. Mix it out of boxing class. Skip. Run. Splash. Skip. Run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Welcome to whatever this is.
Introducing Sky Comedy, the new home of U.S. comedy. We've got a great lineup of brand new shows like Miracle Workers with Steve Buscemi and Daniel Radcliffe, and The Righteous Gemstones with Danny McBride and John Goodman.
Praise be to He.
We've got talk shows straight from the U.S. like The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
What are you talking about?
Ballers and Curb Your Enthusiasm are back with new seasons. This is Sky Comedy, the brand new home of U.S. comedy. Funny every damn day.
Treat yourself.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got
Hand off Carruthers. Big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in. Touchdown.
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks have bounced back one day after suffering their deepest losses in nearly 4 months as investors are seemingly more at ease by signs of U.S. economic resilience and efforts to contain the rapidly spreading coronavirus. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 1%, up 32. The Dow's up 0.7%, up 203 off earlier highs. The Nasdaq's up 1.3%, up 117. The 10-year's down 30 seconds. The yield is 1.64%. West Texas Intermediate crude is now up 1% at 53.66 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.6% at 15.7460 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.14. The euro is $1.10.11. The British pound $1.29.95. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Thank you so much, Greg Jarrett. There is a big question right now as U.S. equities rebound after yesterday's sell-off. How will China's market respond in the wake of the closure of the Wuhan city? How big it is? It accounts for 1.6% of the total GDP of China, as well as the potential ramifications for Xi Jinping, the president of the country. Christopher Balding joining us now, associate professor at Fulbright University, Vietnam, also a Bloomberg opinion columnist, joining us from Saigon in Vietnam. Christopher, can you give us just a sense, first of all, of just what the response has been like on the ground where you are right now?
What we're basically seeing is that even though it's a typically busy time when people are out in restaurants with families enjoying Chinese New Year, what we're really seeing is people staying indoors and ordering lots of food and groceries. We're actually seeing reports of heavy buying in grocery stores and cities working to make sure that they can guarantee residents that they continue to have enough food. People are stocking up, but we're not seeing panic buying from the people I've been talking to. So it seems that even though the impact on the economy is basically going to be, even though people might not be eating at restaurants, they seem to be making sure that they're getting a lot of food and doing a lot of online shopping elsewhere.
So, Christopher, how important is it for President Xi here to get, to handle this successfully, to get it out in front of it? What's the risk for President Xi with the coronavirus?
There's a lot of risk, and it's no coincidence that President Lee was actually appointed to lead the working group on this issue, primarily because Xi does not want to be seen as in charge of this debacle. And I think what you're seeing inside of China right now, and everything that you're hearing is that there's deep frustration at the level of competence in handling and really getting out and addressing this. There was something that's gone viral on WeChat, a very important event where the mayor of Wuhan is holding this press conference, and he's talking about their capacity to make face masks, and he starts off saying, well, we can make 1.8 billion, and then it's like, no, it's 1.08, and then it goes to an even lower number. And so I think there's this sense among the Chinese public that their government is not nearly as competent, and there's a lot of very deep frustration at the government because over the years they have a history of not handling public health crises well, and so there's kind of this mounting frustration.
I'm struggling to connect the idea that in the U.S. and elsewhere, there seems to be a complacency about China's response. And there's been kind of a theme where people say, well, it's so much better than 2003 when SARS was spreading. This seems to actually be proactive. Where can you explain that disconnect?
Well, it's difficult to say because you get so many conflicting responses about what the actual nature of preparedness and China's ability to act. They're clearly acting. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're acting well in solving the problem. There's videos that, and I want to emphasize videos that you see on things like WeChat or other social media platforms. We don't always know how accurate they are, so it's difficult to say. Well, are they acting? There's this video of China has made to great fanfare that they're building a new hospital. Well, these types of the construction format that they're using is basically a type of reinforced heavy-duty plastic cardboard, and they use these on Chinese construction sites. And so it's not really like a quality construction. There's not going to be air filtering and sanitation standards and things like that, but they've clearly gone to the trouble of building something that they can put people in. So it's very, very difficult to disentangle what is actually helping with regards to what China is doing and what is just action for the sake of appearing busy.
Christopher, is it worthwhile making the analogy to SARS as it relates to the potential impact on the Chinese economy, which was material at the time?
I think it's still, in a way, too early to say with significance. I think the first crack that we've really seen in how big an impact it's going to have on the economy is China has announced that they're actually pushing back the return to work date by 1 week at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if that slips another week or two. So I think it's still really too early to start making solid comparisons to SARS or really anything else, because this is just so unprecedented at the moment.
There's also an idea that Wuhan is a very big city, but it only accounts for 1.6% of China's entire GDP. Is the potential impact on the economy much greater based on Wuhan's role in terms of a node of transportation and manufacturing and a part of supply chains of companies both locally and internationally?
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of like right in the middle, in the center of China. It's a big rail hub, lots of manufacturing, and so what you've really seen is you've seen these, as people leave, and so when this happened right as people were leaving for Chinese New Year, and so on some days there were estimates that more than 1 million people were leaving the city of Wuhan in a specific day. But if you've ever been in a major Chinese city during Chinese New Year, you can have these cities that, of 15 million people that will literally, 50% of the population will leave. That's not a crazy number. And imagine if Manhattan was suddenly 50% smaller by population and dispersed all over the eastern seaboard. That's kind of what we're talking about with Wuhan. And so all of a sudden, the risk that virus gets transported all over the eastern seaboard, or in this case, all over China, is much, much greater and a very real possibility.
Christopher, you're on the ground in Saigon in Vietnam right now. What's the feeling there?
There's absolutely lots of precautions being taken. I was actually at a health facility today on an unrelated matter, and they had actually set up a tent outside the facility where they were checking people. Everybody was given a mask, and it was mandatory. There was, of course, all nature of sanitation available to people around. They're absolutely tracking any travelers that have been to China recently. It's absolutely a lot of concern, but I think they're absolutely on top of things and tracking people that need to be tracked.
Christopher Balding, thanks so much for that on-the-ground commentary. We really appreciate it. Chris Balding, Associate Professor, Fulbright University in Saigon, Vietnam. He's also a Bloomberg opinion columnist, giving us kind of the latest, what he's seeing and hearing in that part of the world. And clearly, I think you're right, Lisa, here in the West, and just by looking at the markets today, the rebound we've seen in the markets today, a certain level of complacency, or certainly it's being heavily reported, but a little sense of complacency, perhaps.
And not just complacency, but also this feeling that China's doing such a better job this time around than during the SARS epidemic, that there's a competency here. And hearing what Christopher had to say, there isn't necessarily the same feeling among the population in China.
Yep. Interesting. We'll be following this story further going forward as well. Balance of Power with David Weston coming up at noon Wall Street time on Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Television. He will be pushing the conversation forward with bringing President Trump live with President Netanyahu from Israel on their Mideast peace agreement. That will be coming up in just moments. This is Bloomberg.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run. Mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up, lift. Mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip, mix it, run. Mix it.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Along the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
And a move, and a shot, and he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league. Of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, I'm David Weston. Welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. Moments from right now, President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will speak in the East Room of the White House. The president is set to unveil a new Mideast peace plan. Bloomberg Chief Washington correspondent Kevin Cirilli is inside the White House and joins us now. So set the stage for us. Give us the importance of this announcement today to both of these men.
Well, it's massively important from
term of policy, as President Trump is largely anticipated, David, to unveil a map of sorts that would redraw some of the boundaries in the region. It comes following several months ago when the administration, led of course by Jared Kushner, announced an economic plan to try to incentivize the Palestinians to get on board with this. Now, the Israelis, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as his opposition, have been incredibly praiseworthy of the president's plan. The Palestinians, however, have been quite critical of it. It'll be interesting to see, should President Trump make messages here about how they plan to deal with the Palestinian Authority after its current leader were to be removed from office, or to his predecessor. Beyond that, from a political standpoint, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump both facing political thunderstorm clouds that have followed them into this meeting. Of course, the Israelis have their upcoming election, and of course, President Trump has the Senate impeachment trial. Either way, this is being largely seen as an opportunity for the White House to really lay their claim into a longer-term Middle Eastern strategy that is really being, according to my reporting, interpreted as an opening bid of sorts.
So Kevin, I think it's pretty clear that this could be politically good for the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and for Bibi Netanyahu. But is this a political act fundamentally, or a diplomatic act? By that, I mean, do they really think this might move us toward peace, or is it more for the politics of the matter?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really depends on who you ask, because Democrats are suggesting that this is nothing more than politics. We should note that President Trump enjoys wildly high popularity in Israel, but Republicans are saying that this is part of a broader term approach to Middle Eastern foreign policy. They look at it this way, David. They say that the Palestinians now have an opportunity to come to the negotiating table at a time in which they are facing increased economic pressure and a dwindling economy. So from Republican conservatives' perspective, they would argue that they are offering the Palestinians an opportunity to come to the negotiating table and to have an opening bid. The question will be, and a question to watch for over the next of hours, is whether or not there are Arab countries, predominantly Arab countries and Muslim countries, that back this plan. What will the Jordanians say? What will other countries in the region say? What will the Saudis say? And if you start to see shows of support, even from just a handful of countries in that region, saying that this is something that they are open to, that would be a significant policy win for the United States.
Okay, Kevin, thank you so very much. That's our Chief Washington Correspondent, Kevin Cirilli, reporting from the East Rim of the White House. And now, to give us more on this peace plan, as it's about to be unveiled, we turn to, from New Brunswick, New Jersey, Nora Erakat. She's author of Justice for Some, Law and the Question of Palestine, and she's also assistant professor at Rutgers. And in Washington, Elon Goldenberg, director of the Middle East Security Program at the Center for a New American Security and former chief of staff to the State Department's special envoy for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. So, Elon, let me start with you, because you've worked on these peace negotiations for Secretary Kerry, as I recall. Is this a serious diplomatic overture? Is there any chance this could move us toward peace?
No. I think would probably be my bottom line. And I think that the main reason that you have to not take it very seriously is the fact that the Trump administration has not held a high-level meeting with Palestinian officials in over 2 years. The U.S. role is to be the mediator, to listen to both sides, to talk to both sides, and to try to put out the best ideas possible that can work for both sides. If you're only talking to one side, that is impossible. And on top of that, the fact that they're doing it the same day that Prime Minister Netanyahu is being indicted in Israel, Donald Trump is in the middle of an impeachment hearing or trial. This could have been done a month from now. This could have been done 2 months ago. The timing is suspicious, problematic, and really, I think, demeans the entire process.
So, Nora Erakat, give us a perspective, if you can, from the Palestinian point of view. Obviously, the Palestinians have indicated they do not like this one bit. Is there anything they could do with this to advance their interests?
I think what is really clear is, beyond the fact of the disparity in power and the severe imbalance of power between Israel, the only nuclear power in the Middle East, the 11th most powerful military in the world, the U.S. is self-described most unique ally in the Middle East, and Palestinians as stateless people, beyond the imbalance of power that they aren't even there being consulted, but this is a form of duress imposed upon them, is what the Trump administration has done since 2016. Even if they were present, we still know that this deal is not a deal, but an imposition position in order to entrench a very unjust status quo. The Trump administration has moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, has withdrawn funding for the UN Relief Works Agency, the Palestinian Refugee Aid Agency, has closed the PLO office in Washington, D.C., and Secretary of State Pompeo has said that Trump is a message has been delivered by God in order to fulfill this purpose. So we don't need to even look at the contents to understand that the context itself is a very unjust one for Palestinians.
So as you suggest, the Palestinians do not like this one bit. At the same time, is the alternative perhaps even worse? Because if this goes nowhere, if it's utterly rejected by everyone in the region, is annexation the next step, and is that worse for the Palestinians?
You know what we don't pay attention to is the fact that on the ground, this isn't about diplomacy and negotiations for a state. This is really a fundamental issue about human rights and freedom. Palestinians right now already exist under de facto annexation in the Jordan Valley, in Area C. They cannot get to Jerusalem. Christians cannot pray in Jerusalem, neither can Muslims. Palestinians in Gaza have been besieged for over 10 years. So asking Palestinians, can this get any worse, is really about saying how much more violence can you endure. The real question is how much the international community is going to participate in a farcical process that has been basically perpetuated in order to entrench Israel's colonial takings on the ground, as we continue to have these discussions about what's in the content of these papers instead of looking on the ground and seeing this is an untenable status quo that will benefit nobody in the short or the long run, certainly not Palestinians.
Elon, let me come back to you, because as I say, you have been involved in this process of the United States trying to get a peace process going. One thing we hear, including from Israelis who are in favor of peace process, is they don't have a partner for peace on the other side, that there hasn't been leadership for many years on the Palestinian side that you could sit down and actually cut a deal with. Is there some fairness in that argument?
Well, yeah, but I think the problem is that you have right now no serious partner on the Israeli side either. I mean, what Donald Trump is proposing is not and what would be acceptable to Bibi Netanyahu is nothing, and his settlers, supporters on the right wing, is not a Palestinian state. It's far short of that. And so I think the challenge right now is, and my experience at least in the negotiating room is, you need real courage, you need real leadership. Whenever you have a major breakthrough, you need leaders who are going to take where their people are and move them. People like Yitzhak Rabin, Anwar Sadat, Menachem Begin even, who have done this in the past. And what you have right now on the Israeli side with Bibi Netanyahu and on the Palestinian side with Mahmoud Abbas is neither of those. And you also have in Donald Trump a president who seems to be incapable of actually listening fairly to both sides. So I think you would need a change in leadership in all three capitals before you were to have a serious discussion about trying to move forward with the real process.
Noura Erakat, one of the things we heard in advance of this is that some Arab countries may actually support or at least not oppose this process. Do you have a sense of that? Is it likely to be some Arab countries actually will come forward and say, we think this is not such a bad idea?
I think that what the Arab countries do is of less importance because they are also can act in bad faith and as bad actors and have colluded in order to undermine Palestinian rights. And so we shouldn't look to them and further undermine Palestinian self-representation in their quest for freedom and sovereignty. I also want to highlight that this is not just about bad brokers. This is about a structural issue. You can remove Netanyahu, you can remove Trump, and you will still have a situation where the U.S. is providing $3.8 billion of aid to Israel annually, which makes it so even Israelis now in the run-up to the third election in less than a year don't even discuss Palestinians. It's a non-issue. They're out of sight, out of mind. So we should not focus just on the substance of this, but really on the form. And as far as Palestinian peace negotiators, I'm sorry, this has been a talking point since the early 2000s. You can't say that about Mahmoud Abbas.
Noura, thank you. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We were hearing right now Ruffles and Flourishes, which is, of course, the music played when the President of the United States comes in. We're about to see now President Trump and Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel come into the east wing of the White House. What we're expecting is an announcement of the peace plan, long awaited, that Jared Kushner, actually President Trump's son-in-law, has been working on for many, many months now. We're finally going to get to hear what it is, and we'll have Bibi Netanyahu as well. Here comes now, we're seeing the President of the United States and Bibi Netanyahu walking in to the east wing of the White House, surrounded by his cabinet. Also, by the way, Alan Dershowitz, his lawyer up in the impeachment trial, is there as well. And we also saw Ivanka Trump as well as Jared Kushner there. And now we're going to hear from the President of the United States in just a moment as they're completing the playing of the Ruffles and the Flourishes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Today, Israel takes a big step towards peace. Young people across the Middle East are ready for a more hopeful future, and governments throughout the region are realizing that terrorism and Islamic extremism are everyone's common enemy. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of meeting with both the Prime Minister of Israel and a man that's working very hard to become the Prime Minister of Israel in the longest-running election of all time, Benny Gantz of the Blue and White Party. And both leaders joined me to express their support for this effort, proving that the state of Israel looking for peace, and that peace transcends politics. By any measure, unmeasurable, that's what they want. On my first trip overseas as president, I visited the Holy Land of Israel. I was deeply moved and amazed by what this small country had achieved in the face of overwhelming odds and never-ending threats. The state of Israel comprises only a minuscule amount of land in the Middle East, and yet it has become a thriving center of democracy, innovation, culture, and commerce. Israel is a light unto the world. The hearts and history of our people are woven together. The land of Israel is an ancient home, a sacred place of worship, and a solemn promise to the Jewish people that we will never again repeat history's darkest hour. During my trip to Israel, I also met with Palestinian President Abbas in Bethlehem. I was saddened by the fate of the Palestinian people. They deserve a far better life. They deserve the chance to achieve their extraordinary potential. Palestinians have been trapped in a cycle of terrorism, poverty, and violence, exploited by those seeking to use them as pawns to advance terrorism and extremism. I returned from my visit determined to find a constructive path, and it's got to be a very powerful path forward in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. To further this effort, I also met with President Abbas at the White House. Forging peace between Israelis and Palestinians may be the most difficult challenge of all. All prior administrations, from President Lyndon Johnson, have tried and bitterly failed. But I was not elected to do small things or shy away from big problems. It's been a long and very arduous process to arrive at this moment. On Sunday, I delivered to Prime Minister Netanyahu my vision for peace, prosperity, and a brighter future for the Israelis and Palestinians. This vision for peace is fundamentally different from past proposals. In the past, even the most well-intentioned plans were light on factual details and heavy on conceptual frameworks. By contrast, our plan is 80 pages and is the most detailed proposal ever put forward by far. As I have seen throughout my long career as a deal maker, complex problems require nuanced, fact-based remedies. That is why our proposal provides precise technical solutions to make Israelis, Palestinians, and the region safer and much more prosperous. My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides a realistic two-state solution that resolves the risk of Palestinian statehood to Israel's security. Today, Israel has taken a giant step toward peace. Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu informed me that he is willing to endorse the vision as the basis for direct negotiations. And I will say the general also endorsed, and very strongly, with the Palestinians, a historic breakthrough. And likewise, we have really a situation having to do with a race that is taking place right now. It will end, and we have the support, and it's very important to say this, of both parties and almost all people in Israel. They want peace, and they want peace badly. This is the first time Israel has authorized the release of a conceptual map illustrating the territorial compromises it's willing to make for the cause of peace, and they've gone a long way. This is an unprecedented and highly significant development. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for having the courage to take this bold step forward. BB, we have a lot of powerful people in this room, a lot of the people that can help make it work. So that's quite a thunderous applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will form a joint committee with Israel to convert the conceptual map into a more detailed and calibrated rendering so that recognition can be immediately achieved. We will also work to create a contiguous territory within the future Palestinian state for when the conditions for statehood are met, including the firm rejection of terrorism. Under this vision, Jerusalem will remain Israel's undivided, very important, undivided capital. But that's no big deal, because I've already done that for you, right? We've already done that, but that's okay. It's going to remain that way. And the United States will recognize Israeli sovereignty over the territory that my vision provides to be part of the state of Israel. Very important. And crucially, the proposed transition to a two-state solution will present no incremental security risk to the state of Israel whatsoever. We will not allow a return to the days of bloodshed, bus bombings, nightclub attacks, and relentless terror. Won't be allowed. Peace requires compromise, but we will never ask Israel to compromise its security. Can't do that. As everyone knows, I have done a lot for Israel, moving the United States Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights, And frankly, perhaps most importantly, getting out of the terrible Iran nuclear deal. There's a lot of spirit in this room. It's true. You don't see it often. You don't see it often. Therefore, it is only reasonable that I have to do a lot for the Palestinians, or it just wouldn't be fair. Now, don't clap for that, okay? But it's true. It wouldn't be fair. I want this deal to be a great deal for the Palestinians. It has to be. Today's agreement is a historic opportunity for the Palestinians to finally achieve an independent state of their very own. After 70 years of little progress, this could be the last opportunity they will ever have, and last for a lot of reasons. We'll never have a team like we have right now. We have a team of people that love the United States, and they love Israel, and they're very smart and very, very committed, from your ambassador, David Friedman, to Jason and Avi and Jared, and they're all great deal makers, and they also understand the other side, and they want the other side to do well, because that's the sign of a great deal, and they understand that. And I just appreciate all of the hard work you put in, and so many of your other friends, and of course our great Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Whoa. Oh, that's impressive. That was very impressive, Mike. That reporter couldn't have done too good a job on you yesterday, right? I think you did a good job on her, actually. That's good. Thank you, Mike. Great. Are you running for Senate? I guess the answer is no after that, huh? They all want him to. Kansas, great state. They want him to, but you're doing a great job. Don't move. The Palestinian people have grown distrustful after years of unfulfilled promises. So true. Yet I know they are ready to escape their tragic past and realize a great destiny. But we must break free of yesterday's failed approaches. This map will more than double the Palestinian territory and provide a Palestinian capital in eastern Jerusalem, where America will proudly open an embassy. No Palestinians or Israelis will be uprooted from their homes. Israel will work closely with a wonderful person, a wonderful man, the King of Jordan, to ensure that the status quo of the Temple Mount is preserved and strong measures are taken to ensure that all Muslims who wish to visit peacefully and pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque will be able to do so. This is a major statement. This is of major importance. And at the same time, our vision will deliver massive commercial investment of $50 billion into the new Palestinian state. You have many, many countries that want to partake in this, and many of them are surrounding. They all want this to happen. Virtually every one of them want this to happen, and I think, Bibi, you know that very well. You're going to have tremendous support from your neighbors and beyond your neighbors. Over the next 10 years, if executed well, 1 million great new Palestinian jobs will be created. Their poverty rate will be cut in half, and their poverty rate is unacceptable now and only getting worse. Their GDP will double and triple, and much-needed hope, joy, opportunity, and prosperity will finally arrive for the Palestinian people. Our vision will end the cycle of Palestinian dependency upon charity and foreign aid. They will be doing phenomenally all by themselves. They are a very, very capable people. And we will help by empowering the Palestinians to thrive on their own. Palestinians will be able to seize the new future with dignity, self-sufficiency, and national pride. To ensure a successful Palestinian state, we are asking the Palestinians to meet the challenges of peaceful coexistence. This includes adopting basic laws enshrining human rights, protecting against financial and political corruption, stopping the malign activities of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other enemies of peace, ending the incitement of hatred against Israel, so important, and permanently halting the financial compensation to terrorists. And perhaps most importantly, my vision gives the Palestinians the time needed to rise up and meet the challenges of statehood. I sent a letter today to President Abbas. I explained to him that the territory allocated for his new state will remain open and undeveloped for a period of 4 years. During this time, Palestinians can use all appropriate deliberation to study the deal, negotiate with Israel, achieve the criteria for statehood, and become a truly independent and wonderful state. President Abbas, I want you to know that if you choose the path to peace, America and many other countries, we will be there. We will be there to help you in so many different ways. And we will be there every step of the way. We will be there to help. In other words, for the first time in many, many decades, I can say it will work. It's going to work. If they do this, it will work. Your response to this historic opportunity will show the world to what extent you are ready to lead the Palestinian people to statehood. The Middle East is changing rapidly. On my first trip aboard as president, I traveled to Saudi Arabia to discuss our shared priorities with the 54 leaders of the Muslim and Arab countries. I made clear that all civilized nations share the same goals, stamping out extremism, creating opportunity for the region's youth, and we have to take care of the region's youth. The region's youth is growing up with no hope. We have to take care of the region's youth and existing in harmony with one's neighbors. Since that time, immense progress has been made. A growing number of nations have taken strong stands against terrorism and radicalizations. You see it. Thanks to the courage of U.S. forces, the ISIS territorial caliphate, 100%, not 95%, not 99 or any other percent, 100% of the caliphate, ISIS, is destroyed. And its savage leader, al-Baghdadi, is now dead. And I want to thank, we have some of our great senators and congressmen and women here, and I want to thank you all for the tremendous help. Thank you very much, Jim, Ted, everybody's doing. Our leader, thank you. Mark, thank you. Great people. These are great people. They work so hard and they love this country. The Iranian regime is isolated and weakened greatly. We eliminated Qasem Soleimani, the world's top terrorist.
We have been listening to President Donald Trump in the East Wing of the White House appearing with the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, laying out his peace plan for the Middle East. And he says it's in 80 pages. He calls it the most detailed proposal ever for peace. He says that he does embrace a two-state solution. On the one hand, for Israel, he says that they will recognize an undivided capital of Jerusalem, and they will go forward and support Israel and its security, protect them no matter what. A lot of things here, including some territorial compromises that he put in, that apparently Bibi Netanyahu has agreed to. A lot of things here for the Israelis. On the other hand, the president went out of his way to say he wants to make this fair for the Palestinians as well. So there were some things in there for the Palestinians, including their having a capital in East Jerusalem that would be recognized by the United States with an embassy there if they agreed to everything. He says it's going to double the territory, effectively, that the Palestinians control on the West Bank. And he says that there will be $250 billion in investment coming in, and there would be free access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Terribly important, that shrine, the Muslim shrine in Jerusalem. He also says he's written to Mr. Abbas, the leader of the Palestinians, said that you have 4 years to take this deal, essentially. It will stay open for 4 years. And now we're going to bring back our panel of Noura Erakat. She's author of Justice for Some, Law and the Question of Palestine. She's coming from New Brunswick, New Jersey, and assistant professor at Rutgers. And in Washington, Elon Goldenberg, director of the Middle East Security Program at the Center for a New American Security, and former chief of staff to the State Department's special envoy for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. So let me start with you, if I could, Noura. Did you hear anything in here that was appealing to you? There were some things there clearly designed to appeal to the Palestinians.
As a Palestinian listening to this, I want to tell the audience that what I heard was an incredibly horrifying nightmare of what Trump was parading as peace. What I heard him say is that he is going to put Palestinians in high-tech cages and call it freedom. When he talks about Israeli security but doesn't talk about Palestinian freedom, Palestinian sovereignty, Palestinian statehood, but on the terms that he's discussing with an undivided Jerusalem, recognition of the settlements, the annexation of more territory, what he is saying is he is going to entrench a status quo where Palestinians are currently already caged within 20 non-contiguous Bantustans across the West Bank.
But Noura, he said specifically it would be contiguous. He said that quite specifically, that the Palestinian state would be contiguous and would be recognized. Isn't that at least something of an advance?
I don't know how much faith you have in Trump and what he said. When he says the sky is green, he could be saying the sky is green, but we know that it's blue. On the ground, we know that if they do not append the status quo, there is no contiguity. If they plan on creating certain lanes, what they have right now, USAID builds roads called life roads, where they build tunnels under Israeli cities, not tunnels, but bridges under Israeli cities to connect Palestinian villages. That's what's happening on the ground. They are going to keep the status quo and somehow make it livable for Palestinians. This is unacceptable.
So let me go over to Elon Goldenberg. Again, he actually participated in the Israeli peace process from the State Department point of view. Is what the president said, is it possible? I mean, Noura says whatever he says, that can't get done.
No, it's not. I mean, I agree with Noura completely. I think first issue on settlements, the president said he's going to leave all the settlements and not move one Israeli. It is physically impossible to have a contiguous Palestinian state when you have all the settlements remaining. I mean, Israel does things like force Palestinians to go half an hour out of their way on every day in terms of commutes, traffic, massive inconveniences, hours of time, because it builds settlements right in the middle of Israel. So that's not possible. He talks about an undivided Jerusalem, and then he talks about a Palestinian capital in East Jerusalem. But the question is, where in East Jerusalem? There's so many different ways to use the words Jerusalem. The Israelis define it very differently than the Palestinians. If a capital in East Jerusalem means some outlying neighborhoods in Jerusalem that the Palestinians don't actually believe and consider part of East Jerusalem, that's never going to work. And on top of that, Israel is going to maintain security control of the Jordan River Valley and basically the entire supposed state of Palestine. How do you maintain security control but still have sovereignty and allow another state to have freedom and people to have freedom when they're basically being occupied by a foreign military, which is, by the way, goes to another word that we did not hear the president use once, which is the word occupation. I mean, for Palestinians, it is so important to hear these words. Noura can talk about it more than I can, but she was saying some of those words before. But to have them surrounded entirely by Israelis and American Jews doing this, It's crazy.
So Nora, let me come back to you, and let me ask you, what is the path forward for the Palestinians? Where is the hope, if at all? I mean, earlier you were saying you don't feel like the other Arab nations have been much help. Certainly, when the U.S. moved its embassy over to Jerusalem, there was initial reaction that was oral, but there wasn't much done, really. Is there a path forward? Who are the friends of the Palestinians right now?
Absolutely. I am so hopeful. This is the first time that 8 out of 10 Democratic candidates for president boycotted AIPAC, which has been a source of this dysfunction and violence. This is the first time that these presidential candidates attended the J Street conference and actually said that they want to condition U.S. aid to Israel based on their compliance with human rights and international law norms. We also see that Palestinians have been waging boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaigns with allies everywhere, including Ireland. The Irish Parliament is considering actually an entire boycott of all West Bank settlement products. We also know that Palestinians in Gaza since March 30th, 2018 have been marching every single week to create an alternative future if we just pay attention. We need to move our gaze away from this diplomatic, farcical show, look on the ground of a modern human rights movement of a massive scale we haven't seen recently, and pay attention that Palestinians are paving a path forward for themselves and for Jewish Israelis where they can live together, but not as supplicants, not as a dominated people, but as equals. That is a path forward. I have faith in that. I am part of a global movement that believes in that and is working tirelessly for it.
Okay, thank you so much. It's really great to have both of you with us. That's our panel of Nora Arakat coming to us from New Brunswick, New Jersey, and Elon Goldenberg from Washington. In the meantime, actually, President Trump has just completed his remarks. Bibi Netanyahu is talking right now. You can go on your Bloomberg. It's a live go and follow it if you like. In the meantime, later on today, Kevin Cirilli is going to be talking with Jared Kushner. He's senior advisor to the president. Coming up here, 3M is cutting jobs as its earning report underwhelms. We're going to talk with CEO Mike Roman. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
If you boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Mix it up, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time, skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class, skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right, at Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today, search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Got the pick and mix, Sergey? Oh yeah. What movie are we watching? Superhero. Sergey, we have superpowers! Look, I can fly! And I've got claws and a tail! Sergey, you've always had claws and a tail. Oh yeah, did I always have laser vision? Oh no, Sergey! Close your eyes! Enjoy endless adventures with 2-for-1 cinema tickets from Meerkat Movies when you buy through Compare the Market. Qualifying purchases Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Participating cinemas, 2 standard tickets only. Cheapest ticket free. T's and C's apply.
Welcome to whatever this is.
Introducing Sky Comedy, the new home of U.S. comedy. We've got a great lineup of brand new shows like Miracle Workers with Steve Buscemi and Daniel Radcliffe, and The Righteous Gemstones with Danny McBride and John Goodman.
Praise be to He.
We've got talk shows straight from the U.S. like The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
What are you talking about?
Ballers and Curb Your Enthusiasm are back with new seasons. This is Sky Comedy, the brand new home of U.S. comedy. Funny every damn day.
Treat yourself.
Do you do the same thing every weekend? You know, meet up with the same friends for brunch, browse around the same shops, eat the same Saturday night takeaway. Mine's a lamb balti with mushroom pilau rice. Snuggle up next to the same person and watch the same brain-numbing reality TV. Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
To really step forward and better alignment to our customers, better leverage of innovation, streamline and simplify the enterprise to get after that growth and delivering that strong top-line, bottom-line growth in 2020.
Some of that's within your power, within the power of 3M. Some of it's not. Some of it's the market that you find. Tell us about the market you find in 2020 going forward, because your guidance disappointed some people that said it was a little below the median for what the analysts thought. What are you seeing in terms of the marketplace?
Yeah, so our guidance, first of all, we took stock of an outlook for low growth, but steady growth in the macroeconomic environment. GDP coming into the new year, still steady growth. Industrial production a little softer, but steady growth globally. So that was the backdrop for our return to growth. And then we're also looking at 3 key end markets that challenged us in 2019, namely automotive, electronics, and China. We saw some stabilization as we go into the new year. China, up until what we were seeing the last few weeks with the coronavirus, we were actually looking for low to mid-single digits growth for the total year in China. Impacted still by a slowdown in automotive. We see build rates for automotive being slightly negative, actually mid-single digits negative in China in first quarter, even before coronavirus. Electronics starts to see some reasons for optimism in semiconductor manufacturing and data centers in particular. So we see a little better opportunity there. So stabilizing, maybe getting a little better in a couple of places.
So talk about China, because it's so much on everyone's mind right now with the coronavirus. Give us a glimpse into the C-suite. From the CEO's point of view, how do you manage that problem? Because there's a lot of unknowns, maybe more unknowns right now than knowns about what this is, how it transmits itself, how people get it from one another. How do you plan for that, or do you not? Do you basically say we got to hold on until we find more?
Well, our priority focus right now is meeting the demand for our respirators. This is one of the things that we're seeing is a big increase in demand. So we are...
So tell us about that. How big is the increase in demand?
Well, we're ramping up our production to full capacity, 24/7, as fast as we can, to support the demand that we see in China and even to a degree outside of China. So we have production in China. We're all over ramping that up to meet the demand there. We're working with customers and government officials, health organizations, to make sure we're making the right products and getting them to the right customers. And then we're ramping up production in Europe, in Asia, and in the U.S., where we also produce the respirators that are in demand. So it's an important role we play. We have a team that's experienced at responding to these kinds of situations, and they're doing a great job of getting on it.
How much capacity do you have to expand over the short-term production of something like respirators?
Yeah. Well, we're part of the capacity in the marketplace. We're a leader, so we're a really important part, but we aren't all of it. But it's really important to everybody. This is really a need to step up, and for us, we will take our capacity to full 100% 24/7.
So apart from the marketplace overall that you find, that you take necessarily, tell us about 3M and what you're doing with 3M. And let's start with environment. You took a charge, you took some reserves actually for something that we did know about, some chemicals that have been put in the environment some time ago. But this new grand jury thing, I think, surprised some people, didn't it?
Well, what we're talking about is PFAS, and where we lead into that is with
the grand jury of PFAS. As well?
PFAS is the grand jury subpoena is related to PFAS, and this, just to set it up. I mean, PFAS is really how we're managing that comes from our core values around sustainability. We are a leader in sustainability, environmental stewardship. We have three big areas that we really push ourselves out as leaders. Leaders in science for circular, really helping the circular economy. 40 years of pollution prevention pays. Now taking our plants to zero landfill waste. We have almost 30% of our factories worldwide zero landfill waste. Science for climate, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Our own. We took our headquarters, more than 14,000 people, to directly